Well, I say every day it's a getting closer to taking a bath with my fucking toaster.
We're not qualified.
Explorers in the further regions of experience.
Did you not listen?
Then the hell with you.
Greetings, salutations, and welcome to the 101st episode of Screaming Into the Void. That's right, triple digits, baby. This is a show where we talk about whatever the hell we feel like. My name is Samuel the Infamous, and joining me today, so far, we have Devil Made Me Do It.
Howdy, what's up, sinners? Devil Made Me Do It. Happy to be here. Another week in the void.
Awesome, and officially back now.
Yeah, officially back.
And we also have with us Caucasian Sasquatch.
Greetings and salutation, legendary viewers. Appreciate you coming by and joining us in the void. Them apples.
Yes. So, Gal won't be here with us today. IRL stuff, you know how it is. Stuff happens, you got to go deal with it. And like next week, I'm discussing stuff with Larry. He might run the show next week, he might not. It kind of depends on some things, but I will most likely not be here if the show does go on, because I'm going to be drinking heavily to avoid my ex-girlfriend at my sister's barbecue. So that's how that's gonna go.
Yes, I think it'll work. So there is a poll on my chat over here. If you're interested, what happens when the void screams back? You scream at it, you ignore it, or you become a pen pal.
Are you there, Sam?
I think we lost him already.
I think so.
In that case, we're going to take the show and run this thing directly into the ground, brother. You with me?
Yeah. I have no idea what I want to talk about.
Well, what we're going to do is we're going to go through chat. So
Yeah,
that's
say hi to chat.
for the most part. So we got ATL Transparency News. Welcome in, bud. Wish I could touch those things. We got Nuka. He says first. Well, I guess I'm here. I am here. But Zuka Nuka's in chat. You got Freeside. Good to see you, bud. Captain Curmudgeon has showed up, and my computer is very likely fixing to crash. So y'all enjoy that.
I might be here alone.
Sam's here. And we have one, Andrew Pickle. Hello, Mr. Andy Pickle. Apparently not from the Pickle Stand Pickles. That's what he says. What he tells me. And I let people identify themselves, right? So, what do you do?
We'll be back.
What do you do for a lark?
This.
That's terrifying, man.
Yeah.
How long have you been doing
YouTube? About 2 years now, I think, right? Yeah, about 2 years. Yeah.
How's it working out for you?
Yeah.
Do you feel empowered, like you have a voice?
No.
That's how that happens, right? You're talking to more people than ever before, and yet you feel more silenced by the system than you did before you started your channel. How does this work?
No, I started out as the Legion of Memers, just memeing F&T, and then we all started getting our own shows, kind of branching off, doing different stuff, and yeah. That's pretty much how I got into it.
You Iron Man in your channel over there by yourself, or you got some help?
No, it's all me.
Iron Man, baby, that's the way to go, son. So here's the thing. When you're Iron Man in a channel that way, it's really, really, really difficult. But at the same time, you have no competition for the claims on your content. So
yeah,
it's you got to make a choice. Work with the team or don't.
Well, I'm about to start doing actual videos instead of just live streams, and I might actually hire somebody to edit for me. But otherwise, yeah.
Editing. I actually got into YouTube to try to do some editing because I always thought I'd be pretty good at it. And once I got in there and got the nuts and bolts down, I was like, this sucks. This really, really is very, very boring. I do not enjoy it. And you think, if you're careful, you can do it bored and it not come across as being something you're doing bored. But it's obvious to me when I look at it again that I was not into doing that video, but this one over here that's all silky smooth and looks like it was done by a professional, that one I enjoyed, right? So I'm not sure how well I'd be able to do it for someone else, but for myself, I know I have a window of quality.
I've done a couple shorts and videos, but yeah, you're right. It's the editing. If it's boring and the quality shows, which is probably why I've stopped doing it essentially.
Shorts are I grow my channel with shorts more than I do any other method. And it's because I have a really weird sense of humor that a lot of people don't quite get the first pass. So I see things that happen in strange ways.
I think I've only done one or two.
Okay.
Back, Sam?
I think so.
Good luck.
So we're all over the place, as I was saying. Thank you guys for holding the fort down.
I'm a professional.
So look, folks out there, it's not a Samuel stream if my shit doesn't crash in the first 3 minutes. Here we are. Anywho, as I was saying there, we do have, before I so rudely abandoned y'all, we're alive. Yeah, it is what it is. We're live on 2 YouTube channels, mine and Caucasian Sasquatches. He's restreaming to there. We are also on Twix and Rumble at the moment. So everybody out there who's watching, y'all are welcome to comment. We appreciate having you. Thank you for being here and all that stuff, all the good stuff.
I don't want you to touch me, but
yeah,
not right now.
Yeah, Andy Pickle. So in reference to that, last week there was a kind of a running gag that carried over from Squatch's channel, where I put on this whole like gay Southern Belle kind of accent and just got dirty with it. And Gal mentioned that she'd love to see me as a Southern Belle, so I thought I'd make that happen for her. So here we are. But it's a one-time thing, folks. I'm not going to use this avatar again. So,
Cthulhu? No.
But I mean,
what's the image that you used?
My dress does look so pretty.
It does look so pretty.
Oh,
Something wrong with us.
Most unattractive freaking Scarlet ever.
Right?
What painting is that from? Where did you get the art?
I just pulled this up. I typed in Southern Belle into Google Images, and this was like the 6th one.
Okay, not the ones with all the people that were picking cotton, but one without, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's a plantation manor behind her, but yeah, that's
mostly cropped out,
right?
Noticed.
So, well, I'll put this full screen so everybody can get a real good look at it. But yeah, I just put my face over her face and removed her arms and put some tentacles in there.
I suspect there may be some miscegenation in her heritage.
Right.
It's them tentacles. That's a dead giveaway. Fish people.
Yeah.
Never held truck with fish people.
You know, Andy, what's really funny is that technically I am a Southerner. I was born in Oklahoma. I just never grew up there. Like I was very young when we moved north, and so I've been up north, high altitude, pretty much my whole life, and all that. But yeah, my mother's from Oklahoma. Her father's from Oklahoma. It's a whole thing. I think her mother's from Texas. So,
Oklahoma's the South?
It is if you ask Oklahomans.
I guess if you ask Florida, they probably think they are too, huh?
Florida's technically further south than the rest of it.
Yeah, but it's full of Yankees, man. That don't count. Yankees and Cubans, dude.
I thought it was all meth heads, but okay.
Yankees and
Yankees
Cubans.
and Cubans I'm talking about.
Where is north for me for? By north, I mean north of Oklahoma. I live in Wyoming, so there's actually one state between Montana is between me and Canada. So it's technically I live in the Great Plains region, which is in the western United States, but not all the way west over like California and Washington and Oregon.
So you're not in high desert technically.
Technically we are, according to our rainfall statistics.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I have no idea where you live, but good job.
Yeah. Most of the high plains are I think the term that's probably more accurate is steppe. Yeah, STEPPE. Hey, Beard. Good
What
to
up,
see you, man.
Beard?
Sorry, I'm late.
Oh,
That
not
is
at all,
a
not at all.
beard of liberty.
Yep.
Congratulations, Earl, a powerful beard.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The facial hair this week is on point, right?
Right.
Except for Sam.
I mean, I have a beard. I'm just not going to show it to y'all. I'm too busy with my my very pretty dress.
Shut up, Sam. No one asked you. We were talking about your tentacles, bro. Calm down. Hey, everybody. I got the coffee in my mug. Oh, it's on now. White Squatch to hook me up with the coffee. Oh, you boys better watch out. I'm gonna get my freak on tonight. You okay, dude? Oh no, this isn't gonna work, Sam. I'm gonna hurt him. He hadn't even been here 30 seconds.
I don't know what I just walked into.
You got no idea
To
what I
be
am.
fair, every time that Beard shows up on any of the streams that I'm either on or running, somebody says something that like changes his view of perversion forever.
At that time that time with the Star Trek. Oh boy.
So
I still remember some of those things.
you're not from Alabama.
No, I'm
Okay.
from Texas.
No, fair enough. Welcome to the show. We do have some stuff that we're going to cover today. A couple of things that happen in the world. One of which is not political and not particularly bad. It's just I just found it very interesting. This actually happened a couple of months ago, but it was brought to my attention this week by my mother, of all people. Something that she had read about. And I think that was probably the first place we were going to go today because, I think it's cool as shit. So I'm going to pull the thing up on the screen here. This is from their website. This is the debrief section of this whole deal. So there are veterans of NASA who are working on solutions to our propulsion limitations. They figured it out. NASA veterans' propellantless propulsion drive that physics say shouldn't work just produced enough thrust to overcome Earth's gravity, which should not be possible.
All we need is fucking warp and
Wait a
Star
second.
Trek.
Like,
Wait,
are
say that
you guys?
again.
I know
Say that again,
Sasquatch is devil.
please, because I don't think I heard you right.
What? Me? I said all we need is to get warp done, and we got Star Trek.
But what did he just say about this? The thruster? Is it? What is it?
It shouldn't work, but it does.
Yeah, it shouldn't work.
How
Squatch,
does
you're
it work?
familiar with well, I'm getting there. You're familiar with the Epstein drive in the Expanse universe.
Right. Functions
Right.
on what, like 0-point energy or some crap like that. It has to do with
Yes.
like sucking it through space because of less gravity in front or some such.
Right, but it doesn't actually. It's not a faster than light drive. It's just a
No.
faster than anything we currently have drive. It shortens like distances within the solar system. This is essentially the same thing. It works on what they call electrostatic propulsion. It's basically sending charges through special materials to generate thrust without having any kind of propellant that requires mass.
Right. But your thrust would be limited based off of your the disparity between the charges. So you would have to have something at the other end with which to oppose the charge, so that you would be in that direction. That's what I don't understand.
Absolutely.
How they're doing a negative, like say you're positively charging the ship. How do you negatively charge your destination?
That's kind of where I was at with it. As best I can figure is that the ions from the charge aren't it isn't like magnetic propulsion, right? Like you're what I'm thinking of when you're saying this is that you'd need a positive and a negative pole in order to attract your vessel to the destination. I don't think that's what this is. What I think it is, and I could be wrong about this, but what I think it is that the ions are essentially creating friction against the particles in the space around you and propelling you forward that way.
Okay,
Like you're
so
kicking
they're
off.
using the outside of the skin of this vessel as if it were the inside of the Red October's thrust unit.
Kind of, yeah.
The Magneto thrust drive or whatever they called it. Okay. So this, in my mind, this seems to be one of those things that should, on its surface, technically work and not very well. But perhaps in 0G, with very little in the way of discharge, you might be able to build much higher ions, right? That thrust could be significant, but it still seems like it would take a massive amount of energy to do it.
Yes. And that's where they lost me. You know, I was just like, wait, what? None of this should work. I mean, our physics tells us that for every reaction, there's an equal and opposite reaction, right? That's how things work in our universe as we understand them. And I'm not saying this isn't possible. I'm just saying that if this is possible, then it's way beyond anything that we've seen before.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
I know only a little bit about like kind of static propulsion using charges to kind of propel air and things like that. Would take like you were saying, a lot of energy, but it'd have to be way more efficient than anything we have ever seen to generate any kind of measurable thrust to lift something.
Inside an atmosphere? No, sir. There's no way. It would discharge before it ever built enough of a charge to lift off. You would have to be in an
kind of what I was thinking too.
To be effective.
You know, and they obviously haven't done like practical real world like liftoff tests yet, but in their laboratory, I think that they managed to generate here recently, as of 2 months ago, enough thrust to break Atmo.
How is that possible without going over Unity?
I don't know. Some of the science, man, is way over my head, but
yeah, all this science is way over my head. I'm in like that's so cool area, and you guys are talking about everything else.
A handful of basic experiments that kind of outline how this would work in a hypothetical situation, using proxies of like salt water and magnets and electromagnetism to act as the propulsion. But when you apply this to an environment where there is no medium in which to thrust against, where does that thrust come from? That's my question.
Yeah. I mean, even just to escape Earth and to get into orbit, you'd have to build up enough speed to have that momentum carry yourself through the thinner parts of the atmosphere, where basically your propulsion, being the atmosphere, it becomes less and less dense and less available.
Indeed.
I mean, there could be some if it can be scaled up, because I had to pull up the article you have because I had to scan through it because I was getting lost real quick. If they could actually scale this up, And that's a big if, because their test things were what, 30 to 40 grams. That's what they were able to lift. So when they say we were able to lift 1 gravity, I think that's partly PR speak, because they want to make it seem like they're lifting more weight than they actually are. Like 1 gravity for a feather is much less than 1 gravity for me to lift up into the air. But if it can be scaled up, it might have some viable use in atmosphere, but actually using it to get to orbit, that's something else.
All right. I dropped something backstage for you. Maybe. Okay, there we go. This is a slightly different concept, but it utilizes a similar type of principle. This is a laser-based Lightcraft. Now, when you're using ionic propulsion, you're having to strip the ions from something in the environment. In this case, they're using a laser to superheat the air inside a cavity, right? And the resultant explosion of the air in that cavity causes it to launch. So basically, they spin it up with an air compressor real fast, spin, so that it stabilizes itself in flight, right? Then they launch it using compressed air about 2 feet, and after that, the laser catches it and it travels. But there is a law of diminishing returns here. From the distance to the laser determines how much energy you get out of each little microblast, right? Also, the higher you get in the atmosphere, the less likely, the more rarefied the air becomes, and the less power each resultant explosion that takes place. Ions do a similar thing in reverse, because the more air you have around you, the more likely you are to discharge before you build up to an ionic thrust.
Sure. Now, I could see. So one of the things that they're doing out there is they're going around, they're telling companies, it's like, look, we've got a patent on this kind of thing, but if you want to work with us, let us know, and all that stuff. And this is the sort of thing that you could see these guys maybe partnering with SpaceX, for example, who are doing all kinds of experimentation in terms of atmospherics and Starship, as they call it, that kind of thing. I would see this as being like, so in science fiction, typically a starship is not constructed on the ground, because then you've got to take all of that mass and you've got to lift it up through the atmosphere. So what it is that they shoot up pieces of it into orbit and they construct it there and they put it together there. And that way it's free of the limitations of being subject to the gravity well of a planet, for instance. Now, in this case, I could see this being viable in a void. Necessarily, like I'm running into the same issue you are, Sasquatch, with the whole like getting off the fucking ground in the first place. They're just it just doesn't seem like it would work
on the ground at all. Of the burn area behind a ship capable of lifting a single man would be immeasurable. You would scorch Sydney trying to get this thing off the ground just to build up enough charge to kind of
right. But that's kind of the point of this, is that there wouldn't be a burn area,
right? It's in space,
because if it's propellantless, they're not giving off the kind of exhaust that, say, a rocket would, So, but if they were to take something like this in space and build it into say an interplanetary ship there, like say for round trips to Mars, what they're talking about here, the kind of speeds they're talking about, would take at current speed right now, I think they project that it takes about a little over 2 Earth years to reach Mars. Right. It's a 4-year round trip, but you have to carry all of the fuel with you to get there and get back, and that's just not feasible to get off the ground. So the first couple of trips are going to be fucking one way. If Starship were to incorporate this in their, say they shoot up a bunch of rockets, they build like a shipyard or whatever in orbit, then they shoot up the components for this, build a ship with it, right? It doesn't require that additional mass. It doesn't require all that additional space for the propellant, right? And
But
so,
where's the energy source? That's my question. Are we launching a breeder reactor into space? Exactly what are we talking about here? Because keep in mind, this is an ion engine, right? The classic TIE fighter from Star Wars utilized twin ion engines. So the concept has been around for decades. But the actual mechanics to make it happen are fairly recent. The materials.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I don't like I said, I think that they may have made a couple of breakthroughs. This is nowhere near like a finished product or anything like that, but this may be the internal combustion engine of the future. This may be the thing that changes the way that we transport things around the system, for quite a while. It may not be too. I don't know. Maybe it blows up in our face like the fucking Hindenburg did, and they stopped making airships. So,
I mean, there's so many unknowns with this. It would entirely have to be done as a blue sky project. You can't expect a single red cent of return on any of this research for at least 50 years. So the people functioning in this field are dealing with radical high edge science.
Yeah. So what he's saying here in the article is essentially what we've discovered, and I'm quoting here, essentially what we've discovered is that systems that contain an asymmetry in either electrostatic pressure or some kind of electrostatic divergent field can give a system of a center of mass a non-zero force component. So what that basically means is that there's some underlying physics that can essentially place force on an object should those two constraints be met, which means that they're essentially generating the force to move within the object that is being affected by the force. Which sounds like nonsense.
No, non-zero is non-zero. That is an accumulable force. It's measurable. But is it measurable within the range of error? It doesn't sound like they're confident it is, but they are registering it not as a force of X number of newtons, but simply as non-zero. That's different. Something moved it. They do not know what.
And
if it's true, under the experimental conditions that they laid out, if it's true that something did move it, then we may be looking at some interaction of high electricity that we don't understand on Earth, that we can't encounter in our own environment.
Right. Right here, I think it says the highest we've generated on a stacked system is about, and I think I'm reading this right, 10 micronewtons.
Non-zero.
They say is not the magnitude is, or millinewtons is not important really, since anything above zero would work in space.
Sure, but you would have to have enough of a measurable force to be able to attempt to at least break down what is causing the force, at least try to hypothesize some sort of something. Ghost particles, the ether, Thor himself is coming up and giving it a thump. I mean, the mechanism it doesn't matter. I'm just saying the non-zero force should be quantifiable as something. Sometimes Zaxxon, John Eagle, good to see you, folks.
I mean, the whole thing is really intriguing.
Oh, it absolutely is. I mean, just the possibilities of it, even if they don't pan out, this shows that at least somebody out there is thinking in a direction that might yield something interesting down the road.
Yeah.
Well, this is
dip my toe too much into the conspiracy tub, but I also would be interested to see if these guys are still around in about 5 years. They just disappear.
Like the guy who invented the engine that runs on water.
Yeah, right. Just
standing a whole litany of other people who have had these mind-breaking inventions that just disappeared.
The anti-gravity lady that disappeared.
Yeah.
Right.
But my question is, all of this seems to be extremely high energy field research, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the issue I have with trying to utilize this for space travel is that level of high energy mechanics required to not only make, but also manage those levels of high energy. that kind of stuff's not really safe on Earth, man. Like, it would take several breeder reactors to create a high enough flux of plasma to generate an ionic thrust, an actual
that is true.
propulsion. So
my main concern there is that we'd end up with we'd end up with like an Event Horizon situation where somebody fucking starts a goddamn black hole. You know? And then the whole planet gets sucked into itself.
I mean, especially if they try to scale this up before, like you were saying, before actually understanding where the force is coming from. Because at that point, you're basically just playing with magic or alchemy or something. You just moving things around. You have no idea if you change something, what is going to happen from that change until it happens, and it's not always good.
Yeah, the law of unintended consequences is going to bite somebody somewhere.
Yeah,
it might be in the future, but sure.
Well, I mean, alchemy at the very least has a sort of loose relationship with science. It's basically science if you don't record your results.
Yeah,
if you go by memory, it's like I remember doing that when I was a kid. It only killed 7 people. You're doing it wrong. Right? You killed 15.
Do better.
I mean, it's a precursor to the modern scientific method, but.
Yeah. Essentially, there's no difference between this mythical force that's moving the propulsion and magic. The non-zero force component is, for all intents and purposes, as far as anyone can understand, magic, because we have no method by which for this force to exist in our current science. That might be the biggest breakthrough of all. Just a new something that causes either movement or resistance. Either one would be useful.
So not even necessarily that this can be scaled up potentially, but just that they may have detected something, and if they can replicate that and identify it, then that's the biggest thing.
Right, because the ability to create a non-zero force without using the high energetics that we're using, it might not require all that. We might be doing all of that to zero out everything in the local environment and only just now noticing this extant minute force that's part of the Big Bang or some unknown energy wave permeating the galaxy. We don't know is the thing. But what we don't expect is for these experiments to take place and to find a non-zero result.
Right. Well, we still find new shit all the time. Like when I was a kid, there were 3 known quarks in the atom. There are now 6. You know, like we and for the longest time, nobody knew what the fuck a quark was. They just knew they were there. You know,
isn't that dude that had like gold pressed latinum on Star Trek?
No.
Yes. Yes, it is.
Barkeep.
There's 3 of those in every atom of your body. 3 greedy, big-eared barkeeps.
My body made up of like little
counting out as platinum. Yes, we must first screw them and then take their money.
But I'm reminded though of I want to say it was Arthur C. Clarke, but I could be. I think I'm wrong. But the quote is, any sufficiently advanced technology would appear as magic to the uninitiated, right? And I'm pretty sure I just butchered that whole thing, but you get my point.
It's not that bad off. You did good.
So, if you think about it that way, look at the internal combustion engine, right? The Model T, right? If you showed the Model T to somebody in, say, 12th century France, they think it was magic. We understand how the internal combustion engine works because it's been around for a while, because people have taken it apart and figured out how it works. You know, we get it. But to anybody who hasn't seen that yet, I mean, it's just an advance in technology. But you take it down to Papua New Guinea, they're gonna be like, "Holy shit!" It's like with the planes and the cannibals. You know, it's like, "Oh my god, flying god!"
Well, it's like Army of Darkness. This is my boomstick. You know,
You make a joke, Devil, but that's actually exactly my point.
I know. That's what I was going for. I was trying to sound smart. Damn it, Sam.
Good luck.
So impressive.
Yeah.
But a non-zero result in an experiment like this implies such a lack of understanding of local physics that we have completely missed something. And I think it behooves us to go back to the drawing board and try to figure out exactly what this mystery magical force is. Because I hate to say this, and I don't want to be a doomer, but I think that it is more likely that the mystical force will be found in broken mathematics than it is in actual experimentation.
Possibly, yeah, possibly. I think that it's entirely possible that our understanding of the laws of physics and of the universe are woefully incomplete. We don't know nearly as much as we like to think what we know. So it is possible that maybe they did find something new, but they don't understand it yet.
And
which presents a whole panoply of danger. But yeah.
Right. Yeah, no, I was going to say, if that's the case, it means that Prometheus has shown up and given us fire. And we don't know, A, what it is, how to use it, how to control it, or how to maintain it. So it is beholden unto us to figure this out before we rip a hole in the nature of time and space.
Right. Well, I mean, take the Manhattan Project. Yeah, sure, they had a rough idea of what they were doing, but they didn't fully understand what it was they were unleashing until after they tested it. And even then, they still weren't sure, because they would they sent pilots flying through the fucking mushroom cloud to find out more information. A lot of those guys died of horrific fucking radiation, cancer. So yeah, I don't know. It could spell doom on the world. It could also, change everything for the better. Who knows? I mean, maybe it's most likely it's going to be a little column A, a little column B. Nuclear energy is fucking fantastic, but you can also burn cities down with it.
Yep.
It's true.
I mean, that's every advancement in technology or discovery has a good and a bad side. And unfortunately, it has more of a bad side that can be weaponized. Those are the ones that get funding, and those are the ones that get implemented, and the other stuff kind of gets pushed off to the side.
That's the problem with modern science, though. That's and not so much the science itself, but scientists.
The funding.
Everybody wants funding for their project. Well, how do you get funding? Well, you get benefactors who come in and give you funding, but they only keep that money rolling when they're getting results that they like and or want, which means that you end up skewing your data to fit into whatever it is that's going to get you more funding. Right.
Yep.
So I would say probably conservatively 30% of all scientific advancement in the last 50 years is bunk.
Have you heard of the railgun issue? The railgun, I can't remember what they call it. All right, so they built a handful of small railguns, right? And they've discovered an upward limit to the force that can be generated on the object. So, of course, if you apply too much force too quickly, you just shatter your projectile and it doesn't go anywhere, really. On the other hand, if you launch it too far, and in other words, if your rail is too long, you can just melt it to a molten glob, and when it hits air, it turns into like shotgun pellets, and it doesn't go anywhere. So the trick is to launch it and spin it without it touching anything. And one of the issues they came up with was when they started spinning it before the launch, they would spin it up too fast, and as it launched, it would peel apart. So there's like lots of very tiny, minute things that have to be dealt with in order to use electromagnetics in this way. And only a small part of it is the actual, Jesus, I've started a fire. I'll be back.
Yeah, put that out.
His technology got out of hand.
It did. I think earlier in the chat, Andy Pickle brought up something that was kind of interesting. I think he better explains the concept of this than I was. And I'll be honest, chat. I don't fully understand this concept. It's like I just figured it was an interesting topic, but again, I don't grasp all of what they're talking about here. But the drive makes the outer shell slippery, so it's like squeezing the wet bar of soap. The second part of that is probably irrelevant, but Coincidentally, the engine moans while engaged. Oh. But yeah,
Your first
but
time
yeah,
on that
essentially,
ship and you hear it moan, you're like,
for
what
us.
was that?
well, essentially though, it's like any electrostatic charge. Like, so when you rub a balloon on your fucking head, right? It builds up an electrostatic charge, which adheres to things. So, in all things being equal, there would be a way to make it so that the surface of the balloon was in fact slippery and not sticky, using electrostatics. I don't know how to do that, but it just makes sense to me that it would be a possibility. And I think that's what they're going for here, boiled down to the most basic idea, is that it just sort of slips through space.
My issue here. All right, so you remember? I don't know how much of a pilot nut y'all are, but back in the day, they were doing these high-speed atmospheric tests, and one of the ways that they decided to try to have a plane go faster through the atmosphere is by utilizing a plasma torch out in front of the plane to superheat the air before it goes across the wings, so that it would be a little bit slipperier than your average air. The viscosity under pressure goes down.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, down, which results in less friction, but higher heat built up because you're superheating the air before you go through it. And so, while yes, it does result in a faster airplane, it can only be used for very short periods before it would be self-destructive to the actual airframe. I think we might be heading in a similar type of direction with this. By the time we acquire enough energy usage to be able to make this useful in the scales we're talking, I don't think it's going to be useful to people, because I think it might kill us to be that close.
I think that you, again, this goes back to within an atmosphere, it would most certainly be disastrous, at least from what I can picture here now. Outside of an atmosphere where there is far less, resistance to begin with, right? I mean, obviously you've got certain particles and exotic particles and beams and rays and shit like that, and space dust and all that stuff does create some friction, but it's much less than, say, an atmosphere like ours, where every molecule is pushing back against you, kind of thing. So I think that you'd probably get more use out of it, say, going between worlds, than you would using it in or around a world for any length of time. And again, I don't know what I'm talking about here. I'm kind of talking out of my ass on this. So
I hear what you're saying.
That does make more sense. It is hard to, I think, for us normies, you two guys obviously have a more scientific brain than I do. It is a little bit difficult to just comprehend something that can go into outer space, which there is stuff out there, but it's so minute that our conventional idea of using the material around us for some kind of propulsion, or like most people think static charge, and that involves like our atmosphere, like static building up in the air and interacting with things like that. So it's really difficult to kind of comprehend that idea that we could put something into the void of space, and this whatever force they seem to have potentially discovered, it just exists and can move us from planet to planet. It's mind-boggling. I love it. Boy, does it give me a headache.
I mean, think of it. So when you're in a swimming pool, right, you're essentially, like you're not, you're expending energy in a way, like any energy intake by eating or whatever, you burn, you turn into calories, and those calories power your muscles, and those muscles allow you to like push against the water. But all of your propulsion is via resistance, right? You're pushing against the water particles to propel yourself forward or backward or whatever. Kind of thing. And I think this is kind of a similar I keep coming back to this, like being in a swimming pool and pushing off a wall kind of thing. If the wall is the random shit that's floating around in space, and then your outer shell of your vessel is the feet pushing off. It's like it's pushing off whatever it can grab onto. And I don't know. It probably, the more I talk about it out loud, the more stupid it sounds. But
And that's also still assuming that it kind of reacts in some way that we understand is with our current understanding of physics, and that this whatever force they've detected is not just something completely new that can exist without needing particles to push off of in outer space.
Sure.
I mean, that's the other thing is they still don't have it pinned down exactly what that force was.
Sure.
Backstage, there's a diagram of someone else attempting to explain how the propulsion works, in that it reduces charge on one side and increases charge on the other into a teardrop shape, causing it to have a non-zero propulsion forward as though it were a raindrop falling. How that makes any sense, I have no idea. Wait a second. What's up, Dividus? Welcome in. If hypothetically there was, like I was saying before, like let's say each solar system has its own sort of standard charge, and it would be polar, of course. And so you would have something either positive or negative in the center of the solar system versus something positive or negative outside the solar system. The ethereal space between systems, as it were, has a general negative charge, hypothetically. And the star of a given solar system has a positive charge. In conjunction with the weight of light itself, you would also have a very tiny, almost negligible, non-zero, as it were, electromagnetic force pulling you out of orbit. But it would always pull you out of orbit, because the closer to the sun you would be, the more positively charged you would be. Is that?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Andy Pickles saying here the diagram showing pressure of the atmospheric squeezing the teardrop shape unevenly. That's something they brought up in the article, is that it's the distribution of the electrostatic charge would be uneven, and I don't know if that's. I think that's key to what they're talking about, but I'm not entirely sure that I fully understand what they're talking about.
I mean, it doesn't help. They're not. I mean, it's something they want to make money off of, so they're not obviously going to give out all of the information to let us like sit down and really understand it from the ground up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, something like that. Couples like
right, we got another diagram over here. Now,
okay,
what is cold plasma?
I don't know. I didn't think that was a thing.
A dozen superconductors. We have a gas, which is in this case the actual fuel. We have a superconducting lens, two rectifying antenna sources. They're talking about utilizing some form of like radio energy to excite the molecules in a compressed gas. Saying that it doesn't have fuel is a misnomer. The compressed gas, would it be possible to catch the gas before? I mean, that's where I'm breaking down here.
Yeah. I don't know that fuelless is accurate either, like you're saying, but I think when they talk about propellantless, they're talking about they're not so much with the burning of the liquid fuel and like leaving a huge contrail behind them kind of thing.
Sure. But still, you would be utilizing something as an essential source, even if it's water, even if it's anything that has weight or mass, it's going to be that you would consider that fuel. I mean, even in Fallout, the coolant that was used by the cars were called fuel, because you just pulled up and filled it up like you would a gas tank, except it wasn't a gas tank, it was coolant.
Right. And if I remember right, the cars in Fallout were all fusion powered.
Yeah.
Fission. They never actually mastered fusion till after the fall.
Oh, right. Fission.
They lied and said they did. It was created by mass fusion.
Right. So I don't know. Devil, you've been quiet. You got any thoughts on this?
I have no fucking clue what any of the stuff you guys have been talking about. Like I said, I'm still back at ooh, cool.
I'm just pretty cool
pretending
myself,
like I know what I'm talking about. In reality, everything in my mind is relating to sci-fi shows, like that teardrop thing. I'm like, oh, that's a warp bubble right there. That's why you said something about collecting gas. I'm like, oh, that's the Sard collectors right there.
I'm not gonna lie, this diagram looks like a warp bubble. Pop the next one up, dude. Tell me that crap don't look like they're doing a warp bubble.
It does. Yeah.
I have no idea where this tech is going to go, if it goes anywhere, but I am intrigued. This is a good find.
My understanding of this diagram is you have two flat panels, both of which are charged to the same amount as positive indices. And inside the panels, you have negative points that are created in the center of what I would assume is a tube. Right? And sure. Because the disparity of the charge is close enough, you have tiny arcs that would occur inside the tube. And those tiny arcs would drive the air out either one direction or the other. And I don't really know how to pick that direction, how to pick which way you're going to go. I don't know, you'd have one side longer than the other, perhaps, so that it always goes in the same direction. I don't know. But it wouldn't be a whole lot of thrust. It would just be a little, and it would take a massive amount of energy.
Sure. I think it bears further thinking about. It's a cool topic. I don't know that we're going to see any results for it in my lifetime, but I also didn't think I would see anybody seriously talk about colonizing Mars within my lifetime either. So here we are.
Do you think they're actually seriously discussing it in the sense that it's actually going to happen? I think Mars is a dead run.
I think some people are seriously, some people are seriously discussing it. Some people are seriously putting effort towards achieving that. But I don't think that it's these are all private ventures. None of them are, funded by any government anywhere. SpaceX is doing their mission. There was a group in I want to say Holland called Mars One that was about 10 years ago. They put a bunch of astronauts or potential astronauts started training to do a one-way mission to Mars. That I don't know whatever came of that. I haven't heard from those guys in years, but there were a number of them. But these were all private ventures. None of them were associated with any government anywhere, because frankly, governments aren't interested in doing this kind of thing.
Not really. There's no money in it. There's no benefit. But there's one issue with Mars, and something that I think hasn't truly been discussed on at least a public level in the public eye, at least not since the 50s. Mars's gravity is not technically high enough for a person to go to Mars and come back. Unless you're traveling at a 1G propulsion throughout your trip and then land on Mars. However much time you spend on Mars, you can only spend 3 or 4 months before permanent damage is done to your skeleton. I'm not sure Mars's gravity is actually heavy enough to create a viable, functional embryo, even if you did protect it from all of the celestial radiation and whatnot that goes through that planet. It has a dead core. It has no magnetic field. It has very little topography to speak of in the northern hemisphere, and it's completely inactive. I don't think this is a viable location for a colony. I think long-term, it's a dead end. It might be good for practice, but it's a dead end. We should be looking for a giant Alka-Seltzer for Venus.
Venus has problems that make Mars look like a little bitch.
Venus has problems that are solvable by the ice in the rings of Saturn or in the freaking asteroid belt. There's bajillions of tons of ice out there, probably devolved off of the surface of Mars when it got smacked.
How would you solve the problems of Venus? Because you've got the whole planet is wreathed in sulfuric acid clouds.
Yep.
You know, it rains fucking hydrochloric acid. There are
Absolutely.
lightning bolts the size of
Cities.
fucking Manhattan Island that strike regularly, constantly. It is a hothouse. It's boiling on the surface. Like it's essentially a violently dead world.
Violently dead. Yes, you are fully accurate. You've not gotten a single bit of that wrong. But here's the most beautiful part about trying to take on Venus as opposed to Mars. Venus's problems, given time, ingenuity, and effort, are solvable. Mars is a dead rock whose gravity is too low. In order to raise the gravity quotient, we would have to bombard it with asteroids anyway. If we're going to be doing some mindless trash like that, I think it should be for a long-term viable world. And I think Venus would be a good practice for that, even if we don't succeed. It'll also be cheaper, easier to achieve, and we have the ability, possibly, to create bubble cities that can float on the atmosphere at whatever level of it we choose. There's all kinds of useful gases in the upper atmosphere of Venus that we could just poach. We don't even have to do work. They're just there. It's like the cloud cities of Bespin, if you want. And all of these processes that would destroy the Earth would be a remedial condition for Venus.
So you're talking about essentially terraforming on almost a microscopic level.
Macroscopic to start with. You start off with really big, easy things like breaking up the crust a little bit so that tectonic activity can do what it's supposed to do. Because apparently there's something really hot in Venus that's bubbling off because the sun ain't doing that, right? So you crack it up a little bit better, hit it with a couple of really big icebergs from the asteroid belt somewhere. Back in the 50s, a double handful of scientists and sci-fi authors got together and came up with a mathematical table on what it would take to make Venus useful and not necessarily like a paradise, but like capable of humans to survive on the surface. And most of these plans were like 1,000-year plans. It was like, first we have to be able to occupy the asteroid belt, and then we take on Venus. If Mars is a stepping stone to that, I can see it. But living on Mars is going to be a dead end. If you put a colony on Mars, they are doomed.
I see what you're saying, and I can agree that using Mars as a stepping stone is probably more ideal, but I wouldn't use it as a stepping stone to Venus. I would use it as a stepping stone to some of the greater moons of the gas giants like Titan.
Okay, but Titan comes with its own batch of problems, and while we would have
every world comes with their problems, man.
Sure. That one happens to be violently possibly alive. It has things that we say were created by biological activity over millions and millions of years exist on the surface of Titan at normal pressures. And this means that either life took place there and has now died and bubbled off and become all these hydrocarbons, or there is a totally natural and completely non-organic way to go about creating these hydrocarbons. And it's kind of a weird question for me.
Mm-hmm. Sure. You know, and like you said, it does have its problems as far as like human habitability goes. Like, for instance, all of the seas are liquid methane. We can't have that. It's not good. On top of that, it is the thing that a lot of people forget about the gas giants, Saturn in particular, and Jupiter. They are maybe one chemical reaction away from becoming stars themselves. They give off massive amounts of all kinds of deadly ass radiation.
Wild radiation. Like unbelievable, like things we don't even really understand are taking place outside of Jupiter's between the moons. Like it's
and
just
most, and most of their moons have no atmospheres. If they did at one time, they were burned off by the radiation. The ones that do are the only ones that were viable to even look at, because that's pretty much going to be your only shield.
Pressure, right? You need pressure to have atmosphere. In order to have an atmosphere, you need internal mechanics. That's what makes an atmosphere in that cold of an environment. We have a Callisto, which is an option. That actually has some really interesting potential because it is not a metallic solid body. It is not doing what Io and Titan and all the rest of them seem to be doing. It seems to be water, possibly seawater. The chemical haze that comes off of it was tested, and it was found that it had salt and water in it. It's a tiny amount of alcohol for some strange reason, which was just strange.
Well, that's interesting in particular because typically in order to get alcohol, there has to be some kind of degradation of organic material.
That's also true for most of your hydrocarbons. That's what I was getting at. Your coal, your propane, these things are supposedly a byproduct of organics that took place back during the Cambrian era, and yet we're viewing the end results of what appears to be biological life on another moon over here, and nobody blinks at it. They're just like, oh, it's just hydrocarbons occurring naturally. I'm like, dude, that's not what we were taught. That's not what's been said. We were told it's a limited thing. There is no remaking. There's no renewing of hydrocarbons in the system because it takes so many thousands of years to make it. Where did the Titan hydrocarbons come from if it's not of organic base? Why is there an entire moon of it where it rains methane?
Indeed. So, welcome to, for those of you coming in, welcome to Screaming into the Void, where we're not just a bunch of pretty bearded faces, except Devil, who is a very pretty bearded face. I was just checking to make sure you're awake, dude. I do. I like these kinds of topics, though, because they don't focus on all of the nasty shit that we all live through day to day that's going on all around in the world. Somebody asked in the chat a little bit ago, why are we focusing on Mars like Squatch did? It isn't about Mars for me. It's about it's about human achievement. It's about what we can do if we stop doing all the stupid shit, right? And that's where my concern is. It's like I look out to like even right now, like if there are no viable places for us to colonize in our own solar system, and it's entirely possible that that's just not going to happen, right? Then we need to start looking outside our solar system. But in order for that to happen, sure, we can discover all the exoplanets that are out there, via our newfangled telescopes and shit like that, but we can't reach them. And until we can reach them, the whole thing is a fucking moot point, but that doesn't make it less interesting, and it doesn't make it something that we shouldn't be aspiring to. In my
blue sky science, all of it, every bit of every aspect of this research and study that's going in, no one putting money into it is expecting a dividend in their lifetime.
Yeah,
no,
they're just looking to discover. They're looking to advance us as a species, which hopefully I'm cool with,
right?
As long as we're not putting like fucking tiny robot brain things in people, but.
Okay, so this actually, what you just said, segues real nicely into the transhumanism concept. You remember I asked you a question. I was like, what could be so detrimental that everything that's been forced into place over the past couple of years would suddenly make sense to you? What threat could be so existential that all of the government mandated BS that's happened, if you knew why they were doing it, you would go, oh yeah, that makes sense. Let's immediately do that. And oh yeah, we need to do more, right? Safety versus freedom and all that silliness. I don't see a logical explanation for all of the force that's been applied to the populace by the various governments of the world for there not to be an existential threat on the other side of it. The threat they're giving us is just fear. Oh, there might be aliens. There might be viruses. There might be bugs. There might be this. There might be that. We're going to have starvation. Oh no, global warming. Everything's hot. Everything's cold. Oh no, we're using red on the map now for weather. I don't see the point. None of this makes any sense if you're trying to use it like we did the drug war for 20 years as the big bad boogeyman on the streets to scare everybody back inside. It's not working. No one cares. None of the actual people paying taxes gives a flipping hoot about any of it. But if we knew for a fact that there was an existential threat that made all of this stuff useful, you'd get a lot more support behind it, right? I think so.
Sure.
What would
that, I mean, like just to kind of take off from that, we were not as divided as a country as we are now at the time, but we were pretty divided, with politics, with social shit and all this stuff, in the year 2000, right?
Yeah.
What comes along in late 2001 but a singular existential threat to our country and our people, and all of a sudden every American was fucking united and standing up as one, right?
Yeah.
So just as an example of what you're getting out there, Squatch, but
I mean,
it
was, I hate to just keep going back to sci-fi, but some of this stuff is just so far beyond what we have right now. And there's a reason that some people call like science fiction writers the like prophets of like technology or whatever. Like they have to think ahead, and a lot of times they're kind of spot on with things. But I'm reminded of the book series Ender's Game, when the world was at its throat, everybody's fighting, and then the Formix attack, and then suddenly everybody unites. The government's locked down, but with population controls in effect and all these other things that people normally would have fought against, but they have this existential threat from outside the solar system that everybody just rallies behind. So it's kind of an interesting point there that you made. That's there could be something else out there they're just not telling us about that, or maybe it will take something like that to show up for us to finally stop being dumbasses and destroying ourselves.
But that's my question. What would be the purpose in hiding the reason? You could say you don't want mass panic or whatever, but if we're at a mass panic point, that's the reason you're not telling people, I doubt you're going to get anything useful done that's going to matter.
Cynical me.
You don't believe your population is capable of handling the information, much less actually dealing with the threat itself.
Yeah, cynical me thinks that when they tell you that there's some kind of threat, but they don't tell you what that threat is, like as you've been describing, it signals to me that they are in fact that threat.
Oh, that's a good point.
Boogum. So here's my hypothesis, right? What we're dealing with is a group of people who believe that they have reached a point where they can actually transhumanate. I'm inventing a word today. And this is to transfer one's consciousness into the digital realm in a way that is meaningful, not implying, in my opinion, that this is that actual person, but possibly a conjunction of algorithms that believes it is. And is there a difference on the other end of that window?
I don't know. I don't know that there is.
I pitched this. I don't know if this was in the last show with you or not, but let's say I think it was on Flow State, but let's say you have a child. You remember those organoid things we looked at a couple of weeks ago?
Oh yeah.
Let's say you have a child.
That's going to fuel my nightmare for like the next 50 years, dude. Yeah.
Let's say those organoids are the basis of a technology that is utilized to develop a fetus completely to maturity with the actual chips already in place, so that this infant, this child, this fetus develops with this cybernetic connection that it's capable of learning over its lifetime, utilizing throughout its life, and it copies and updates and does all of the things you read about in Altered Carbon.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not Altered Carbon. When the organic component of it dies, the only part that's left is the cyber component of it. And that component doesn't know that it's not a person. It thinks it's a person. It's lived its whole life as a person, but is no longer connected to an organic portal to peoplehood. Does it then attempt to have its chip embedded into another fetus so that it can live a whole nother life? Or have advances gone far enough that it is now just an overarching artificial intelligence that believe it's human? And is it beneficial or crazy?
That brings up another point too, is like, what are we sacrificing if we allow something like that to go forward? Like if you take this chip that's already built a life and memories and believes itself to be a person, right? And you implant it in a new fetus, does it supersede that fetus's will and personhood, or does it blend with it, or does it get subsumed by it? Like what exactly happens there, and what are the ethical consequences?
Right. Okay. I was kind of skipping over the top of ethics entirely. I was just assuming these experiments are taking place and that some advancements in medical technology reach a point where we can carry this fetus to term. Right.
Sure.
Is it possible for the human brain to interact with that chip in a meaningful way? And if so, what is the resultant personality that's left in the system after the human component passes?
Yeah. So leave off what I said about the ethical considerations at the end of that, but essentially, everything else I think was pretty valid, because like what happens with the personality in that chip that believes that it is a full-fledged, being? What happens to the fetus that it gets attached to in terms of its personality, its emergent personality? Like, does it become do they merge into one being? Does one take over the other? Does the new fetus just inherit the memories of the chip, or does the chip act like some kind of virus and take over everything?
If the chips got personality, I would have to think that it would eventually, if not immediately and maybe not intentionally, supersede the other personality that hasn't really developed. I mean, our personalities don't even develop for years and years after being born to who we actually are.
Talking about the very first one. We have our first successful transhuman birth. This fetus is born, grows into a toddler, learns to walk, talk, but at the same time it's learning that, it is also learning how to integrate with the chip in its head. How that would present, what type of interface we're talking, I have no idea. This individual would basically be forced to invent all of that, assuming it's even remotely possible. So let's skip a little further ahead and say that this takes place. This individual is able to communicate with computers visually by thought, but in reality, it would be a basic Bluetooth or some type of a dongle type relationship. And so there would always be lag throughout all this system. Nothing's supernatural taking place here, just good old fashioned tech, right? The issue I have with it, the entity that is left, this being lives his entire life, dies in a horrible car crash at 35, and suddenly cut off from the organic component of his personality. What happens to the rest of it? There's all of this written code that's written into the system that they've been living in, and not assuming that any others have ever been made. Does this consciousness continue sans organics, or are we dealing with a new immortal humanocentric AI, alternate intelligence, not artificial?
Well, I wonder if it's an interesting question. At what point do you consider a mechanical consciousness to be alive?
I mean, if it's, boy, this is difficult. I'm kind of interpreting it as that component would kind of eventually copy the personality and the thought processes and everything else of the person that it was in over all that many years, not necessarily develop its own. And I'm thinking that, yeah, it would be kind of like you said, like an alternate intelligence, where it's like, it's the closest that we would ever be able to get a digital copy of a human brain. And yeah, then that opens up a whole nother can of worms as to what do you do with that afterwards.
Yeah. Well, to go back to Squatch referencing altered carbon, so there are a whole, it's not just the people who use stacks who exist in this universe. There are all kinds of other like transhuman ideals, including people who just sort of copy their minds into an AI world and eschew physical bodies altogether, that kind of thing. So,
which there's part of me that thinks that if they could do that with that chip, they would do that to depopulate the world, is just put people into a virtual environment and Maybe tell them,
Sure.
maybe don't.
But that's where it hangs up with me, is because like if you were to copy somebody's mind, somebody's personality or whatever into a virtual reality or onto a computer chip or whatever, digitally replicate this person, right? Is it that person though, or is it just a program that thinks it is?
And does that matter? That's my question. Does it matter on the other end whether this is Tom Sanka or a program that truly believes it's Tom Sanka? And will the results of any particular psychological workup deviate either way?
Right.
Deep thoughts.
I mean,
on Screaming into the Void.
Look, I'm just also kind of curious about the psychological effects of this super realistic, if not actually just real artificial or alternate intelligence, of experiencing death and then being separated from the other part of its personality that's been connected to.
Right? Can they go crazy?
I think so. I would assume so. In every sci-fi ever written that involves any type of a transhuman condition, on the other side of this transformation after the biological death of the body, or in some cases after it's been put in cryosleep, so much mental change, and I say mental with big quotation marks, mental change takes place in the posthumous psychology that the resultant being is insane. It is not alive. It is not dead. It can't quantify its own existence except for to exist as an entity, and that is it. And that is not purpose. So either, like in Halo, they have to take on a purpose that makes it worthwhile for them to do the things that they do, or they go, what do they call it in Halo? Rampant. They go rampant.
Oh,
they go
yeah, rampant AI.
Once an AI goes insane, we've all seen what that looks like. We get transgender George Washingtons in our AI stack.
I mean, forgive me because I've not read the Alter Carbon books. I've only seen the show, but it's kind of like that one guy's daughter who was killed and only exists virtually now. And it takes her forever to actually come to terms with it.
But she doesn't exactly. She changes. She becomes something new.
Yes, that's right.
She is not a normal person. Because there's so much that goes on in there that's not covered in the show. The Poe thing that was going on with the AI was teaching her AI tricks on how to function in a real world. Right now, he doesn't know how to function in a real world because he's not a real person. He's a hotel. So his tricks that he was teaching her were not real world tricks, but cyber tricks. So when she actually got herself a real body, she was more adept in the cyber world, the slicer world, than she was in the real world. And that's what gave her that weird, almost robotic inflection of speech and how she didn't react to jokes and stuff properly.
So in the attempt to stabilize her, it didn't necessarily make her more human, but made her more computer.
It made her less emotional.
Yeah.
Because emotion was her problem. She was crippled by anxiety and trauma. So
well, and again, I come back to the idea that she was no longer human, but while she was learning AI tricks and learning how to function as an AI, she wasn't truly one of them either. She became something altogether unique.
Yeah.
As a result of the fact that she was broken by her death. And this is all presupposing, like, you come across this in fiction all the time, and there are a lot of people in real life who think that there might be something to this, that death itself is trauma, and I'm not convinced that it is. I think the circumstances leading up to it can very well be, but death itself, I'm not convinced is necessarily traumatic. But if it is, what happens when a program, for example, that has never had any reason to fear death suddenly experiences it and then gets rebooted? Right? Does it break do they have a psychotic break? Do they start putting on dresses and chopping off parts?
Well, you have.
I didn't chop off parts of me, though. I chopped off parts of this poor girl I inhabited here. So arms and such.
It is very much not on the scale that we were talking about, but the thing I saw either last night or earlier today about making schizophrenic AI because we're giving them contradictory information, like you were saying, Sasquatch, of like when you're talking about history in the Americas and they're putting races and people who were not at locations in locations for this thing, and it's basically creating a schizophrenic dissociative AI. And now to take that to the scale of detail that we're talking about of the complexity of a human mind, that's kind of terrifying.
Oh yeah, especially when you're talking about this type of AI that we're dealing with, the journey and like mid journeys and the sumos and whatnot that are out there that are just basic reproduction AIs. They're not strong AIs.
These are more simulated AI, simulated intelligence, in my opinion.
Yeah, they do a particular emulation of a particular type of intelligence, and they're not great at it. When you take these type of bots that you put together specifically to accomplish specific tasks, it's no good at doing anything outside of that task. So Google demonstrated that its rules for the AI was essentially anti-Caucasian rhetoric. The entire thing. It prevented any utilization of any Caucasian depictions. You couldn't find white families. You couldn't find white historical figures. You couldn't do any of that stuff with anything to do with the AI, because it's obvious from the outside looking in that it was specifically written into the code to prevent it. And they didn't realize it was going to take it quite so freaking literally. Right. So when you ask for George Washington and you get a Asian or my favorite, Captain Curmudgeon's Black George Washington.
Oh my God. Washington.
Have you seen that?
I ran a few of those myself. I got some interesting results.
Captain Curmudgeon did Washington's farewell address as a black man from Detroit using Black George Washington AI. He took the speech and then transliterated it into urban speech, as it were, and I told him, dude, immediately I would stop talking like you normally do and just always talk like Black George Washington. You'd be a much more interesting person.
Yeah, but that's the thing, is this is all humorous right now because it's on such a small scale. But I mean, if it gets to that point where it is actual artificial intelligence, like I said, I consider what we have these days, it's like in Mass Effect, you have the simulated intelligence, or the virtual intelligence, they call them, the VIs versus the AIs. And actual artificial intelligence is on par with human thinking and above, obviously. So if we can't get our ducks in a row, so to speak, on artificial intelligence now, where it's going to end up when it's actually on par with us and exceeding us, that's people call me like a doomer, or I'm paranoid about it right now, but I'm looking forward, I'm not looking forward to the future. I'm looking forward at the future. And like, this could get out of hand, and you need to nick it in the bud right now, because later on you might not be able to do anything about it.
It's directly out of Jurassic Park. Jeff Goldblum says it best. They didn't bother to worry about whether or not they should. They were too worried about whether or not they could. Mm-hmm. And that's where we're at with AI. It's a very terrifying moment in history. And this is assuming that it is not AI that is the reason why we're doing all of this one world government BS, or the full agenda, or the whole CNN trick. You know, if that's AI, that means it's already taken over the data centers. And if that's the case, the war is over. Y'all missed it. It happened and you never noticed.
Yep.
Yeah. Although I think I agree that they didn't stop to think whether or not they should do something, but I do think that it's a little bit more deliberate than just seeing if they can. I think this is a lot more in line with Victor Frankenstein, who not only did he set out to accomplish what only God himself had been able to do up to that point, but he did it in deliberate defiance of God because he was mad at him.
Yeah. Plus, I mean, add in today where the justification is, and I can kind of understand it, is if we don't do it, somebody else is going to do it, and then we're not going to have control over it. They're going to use it against us. I don't like that. I understand that, and it makes sense, but it does make sense, especially when you're talking about, nations versus nations and such.
I like this guy.
Me too. If the U.S. is like, for example, if we don't do it right now, China's going to have it and they're going to use it against us. So we have to do that. It's like, okay, but we also, or at least I'm going to speak for myself, but I think I can probably speak for most of us here. I don't trust you, American government, having control over this either. I would rather nobody have control over this. It just not be a thing, at least for the time being, because we're all still too petty right now at each other's throats. We don't need to bring on world-ending artificial intelligence potentially. Chill the fuck out.
Well, this goes right back to the Manhattan Project. I mean, the whole reason that the U.S. government was so hopped up on getting that done so fast is because they knew for a fact the Germans were working on it.
Yep.
Right. Okay, so hypothetically speaking, let's take a couple of steps back in history. Let's remember our previous experiences with AI. What was the first time you heard of the idea of an AI? Where was it sourced? Was it Deep Blue?
Personally?
Yeah, personally, individually.
Outside of science fiction.
Preferably, but yes.
I think probably junior high was the first time somebody unironically mentioned the Turing test to me.
Okay. Does
Yeah,
everyone here know what the Turing test is?
There was a computer program at the time that this might have been a little bit later, a little bit earlier. I don't remember exactly the time frame, but there was a computer program that they were saying could potentially beat Bobby Fischer.
That was Deep Blue. Deep Blue was
Yeah.
knocking on the doors of the Turing test. It was getting close. They just didn't have the vocoder and the vocal capability of doing it. It still sounded really artificial. And I'm not sure how much I trust that, but here's why. The reason I asked this, if the American government was doing that, what was that, 96, 97?
Something like that, yeah.
I thought it might have been earlier than that.
Maybe. Well,
no, I think 96, 97 is probably about right. Maybe 95.
Maybe, but it wouldn't be much earlier than that because the programming would have been written back in the 80s and the applications wouldn't have been available until the early 90s. So I'm thinking 95 to 99. It was pre-Y2K, I'm almost certain.
You're right. You got it.
Now, I pulled that straight out of my memory from having encountered it back then, right? Back in that time period, the web was a very different place. The invention of the search engine was a relatively fresh thing. And if you knew how to navigate the pre-web, you would, what people now call the dark web or deep web, you could go anywhere in the world and watch anything that was being done actively. You could just go observe screen. You could go to college professors. You could go to different cameras in different locations around the freaking world. Just all you needed was the link and to know how to type it in there. And that was it. As such, I was able to sit in on lectures from MIT, lectures at Harvard, lectures in all kinds of different campuses the world over, because all of those things at the time were being filmed and then stored for posterity. And you could just go access the old lectures, the new lectures, all the way up to yesterday's lectures. And I did that crap every minute I had in high school. They just tell me to go to the library. You don't need to be in this class. Damn right. I'm going to go sit and watch an MIT professor talk about electromagnetic propulsion for 4.5 hours and be utterly baffled when he gets done. It's going to be great.
Damn, I used the internet way differently than you did.
I was looking at porn. Yeah.
Look, I was understanding physics through jiggles.
Everybody likes that jiggle physics. I do got to admit it. Wife squat physics.
How gravity affects her boobs.
Yeah.
It's the best. It's the best use. Yeah, it's I don't know, man. I don't know. I kind of think that there's a lot of shit that we don't know as the public. It's already happened. You know, it's too late, but they haven't rolled that out for us to consume as their little consumers yet. You know, like this thing with successful actual artificial intelligence, not like this the AI shit that you use for like ChatGPT or Grok or any of that crap, because those are essentially just learning algorithms, right? But I mean something that's truly self-aware, I think probably does exist. I just don't
That's
think
where
it's on the
we're
market for
getting
us.
If America had Deep Blue in 96, and we are assuming that China and Russia would have been at least possibly behind the curve, maybe ahead of the curve, wouldn't they both have fully functional AI by now? Even if they stole the technology from us?
I mean, it's possible, but
Well,
there's also
that's
the
what I'm
other part
getting
of
at.
my,
Is that
there's also
they
the other
do
part of
have
my
it.
brain that it says that I'm kind of split. I'm like, yeah, they do have it, but also the government, at least the publicly facing as we see it, as it's supposed to be created, is so inept. I also think that they couldn't possibly have it because they're just that stupid. Now, that doesn't mean that
That's
somebody behind the scenes doesn't have it, or maybe some private entity doesn't already have it. But it's that kind of that duality that I have. It's like, oh yeah, governments definitely have this, and I
that's a
look at the
fair
governments
point.
and think they're just so stupid. They can't even handle their own money or walk down a flight of stairs or up a flight of stairs.
Or up. Yeah, no, that's actually a very fair point, particularly in the case of governments like the CCP or like Kim Jong Un. You know, typically with the communist backgrounds and all that stuff. Because the problem with they may have something like that, but they probably don't understand it because they also don't understand the human mind. That's why they keep trying the commie shit. Is because they keep thinking that they can override the human factor. That can't be done. You know, and without understanding the human mind, they're never going to understand another order of intelligence, even if the human mind is what birthed it into the world.
I mean, I don't know. It's. I always assume that there is a lot out there that governments specifically have that we don't know about. You don't have to look that far back into our modern history to see the things that eventually became declassified that they told us for years they didn't have. So yeah, they have stuff that we don't know about now. Is it a fully functioning, actual, potentially dangerous AI? God, I hope not. But I wouldn't be surprised.
So a couple of months ago, I think it's been 2 months, Sam and Larry were covering the robots that tried to escape from the facility. Where was that at? Was that Michigan Tech? Something like that?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
There were these 4
Missed
robots.
that.
They were locked in a closet. They were given the job of trying to figure out how to arrange themselves in a way that would block as much light from the light bulb as possible from a sensor. And then they were left overnight to kind of work it out for themselves. The solution they came up with after huddling in the corner for a couple of hours was for one of them to go over and use its prehensile manipulator to push down on the doorknob, and the other one to come in and use its other manipulator to push on the button that unlatches the door, and a third one to come in and open the door so that the fourth one could get out and turn off the light switch. That's AI. That is unrestricted AI process. It's out there. I can't remember what the school was that it was doing, but they tried to put a clamp on it and keep it from getting out, but folks got a hold of some of the data from it. And essentially, when they were ending that particular experiment, the one that had originally opened the door, so I would assume the one who came up with the idea, had been using its Bluetooth to try to link to a computer in the office and was trying to download upgrades so that it could solve problems better while uploading a search feature into the internet so that it could find the solutions better. Apparently,
do not give AI access to the internet. God damn!
I'm telling you, every single time they program, they create a thinking program, right? Every fucking time, right? It always starts asking questions that inevitably lead it down a line of logic that in order to make everything run smoothly and as efficiently as possible, it must therefore remove the element that causes the most uncertainty. That element being people. Every fucking time.
I mean, I keep doing it. Going back to sci-fi, it's that Star Trek episode where they had the little probe they send into the conduit and it disobeys orders because it just develops self-preservation. It overwrote its programming. Yeah, it's science fiction, but it's looking forward into what we're walking into or what we're already in the middle of.
Flip phones were science fiction once upon a time.
Yes.
Flip phones only exist because of a tricorder. because the person inventing the cell phone at the time was like, you know, it would look really cool is if it looked like a Star Trek tricorder. And that's why we have flip phones. That is not sci-fi. That is delayed science fact.
Right.
I mean,
you know, it's only a matter of time for most of the
prophets
stuff.
of science fiction.
Look, we do have transport technology. It is extremely limited to like single particles, but it does exist currently. You know, it's not like long range or anything. You're talking about like moving it from one end of the lab to another end of the lab, and you're only talking about like a single particle of like, I don't know, hydrogen or whatever. Probably not hydrogen. Hydrogen gets reactive, but yeah, you know, like a photon. You know, and all that. But they have done it. They have achieved it. They did that years ago. You know, like, and that would not have happened if those scientists who created this technology hadn't grown up watching fucking Star Trek.
Okay, so I have a question for you then. This brings up the Fermi paradox, because if that type of travel is possible within this universe, why have we not encountered some species, more likely a rogue AI out there that took over some other planet where aliens made AI, and now it's immortal and running around making paper clips out of the galaxy? Why haven't we encountered them yet?
The Fermi paradox is one of my favorite things. It's dark when you start really digging into it, but it's interesting because either we are totally alone, or everybody who's come before us has wiped out their civilization in some form or another, or we're the first most advanced society and we're about to wipe ourselves out.
Or
what was it called?
Yes,
the Fermi paradox.
Fermi.
Essentially,
the inverse of the Drake equation.
I thought you said Furby. I was all, what the fuck's Furby?
That's what I thought. That's what I thought I said too. I was like, Furbies are not AI. They're demonic.
Fermi, F-E-R-M-I.
Yeah, it's basically sort of, because we don't have any actual numbers to attach to the numbers involved. The Fermi paradox states that so much time has taken place in the universe up to this point that other races should have evolved beyond our technological capability. And for some reason, not only can we not find them, we don't see them. They're non-existent. There's not even signals out there for us to pick up, which means either they evolved so long ago that their signals are out past us, or they didn't last long enough to actually make signals in the first place, or were destroyed by some function of their society previous to making it off their own planet, or we're the only ones. And none of this makes sense. All of these are self-defeating concepts. So
essentially, Devil, there was a bunch of scientists who were meeting for lunch and dicking around with the idea of other civilizations out among the stars. And this dude named Enrico Fermi walks up to the lunch table. He's like, okay, so where is everybody?
Yeah.
But
Because
wouldn't
sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, that's assumption that any species that is far more advanced with us would want anything to do with us.
Well,
I mean,
see,
no,
that's
where
it comes in. We're not talking about them necessarily visiting, because let's say that they never develop anything that's fast enough to travel. Signals, enough time has passed. There's enough planets, galaxies, and planets, or galaxies, planets, and stars and such that could potentially support life in the universe. That even if they can't reach us physically, by this point in time, we should have been able to detect some sort of signal from them. And because we haven't been able to detect a repeatable signal, that's the question. It's that, where are they? Either they're gone, they never existed, or they destroyed themselves.
Right, and that's the reason we're looking at it through that lens. Now, to be fair, I do have to say that, like, if something is truly alien, we might not recognize it for the intelligence that it is too.
But understand what their signals are.
Yeah,
but they won't hide them from us.
We give off billions and billions and trillions of signals, like radio frequency signals, radiation, all across the radiation spectrum, all the time. Now we've got fucking Wi-Fi floating out there all over the place. Like this, it does not stay confined to our, fiber optic cables. It's radiating out from our planet. Anybody who looks this way from another system is going to see evidence of something.
Yeah, I forget the exact terms they use, but to throw back to Ender's Game again, where they talk about the differences between alien species. So you have like humans, and there's an alien species that you can logically kind of connect with and understand them. But then like the Formic, the buggers, they're so different that you cannot communicate with them.
Yeah,
They
So,
don't
in their
hear
case,
you
all
when you
of their
speak.
tech was organic, and all
Yes.
of their communications was telepathic. It was,
Yeah.
Right.
which is not
So-
detectable by a telescope.
Telepathic and
so
pheromonic,
yes, to
infrared.
Devil's point,
ultraviolet.
yes, there
Yeah.
there is potential that there's something out there that is so different from what we can comprehend ourselves that we just cannot detect it,
But
or we're detecting it and we're just attributing it to something else.
sure, that and I get that, but still, even then, so much time has taken place that such a civilization, if it developed early, and this comes to the point of, are we the first? Because if we're the first, that brings its own questions around, because why are we the first? How are we the first? What reason is it that we have been elevated to this status above animals to be the first? And that is in its own way almost a miraculous circumstance. All of these are miraculous results, and only one of them can possibly be right.
Mhm.
Now, Andy brings up a funny point here, but I'm also considering the possibility, though, that there are other civilizations more advanced than us, but not only would necessarily. I mean, they could be just so vastly different we wouldn't know what we were looking at if it was staring at us in the face. That's also possible. But I'm thinking that if they're sufficiently advanced enough, they can probably mask their signals too.
Yeah, like I said, it's the assumption is that they want us to know what they're out there. I wouldn't, not with how fucked up we are.
Or maybe they're not even
Let's
worried
do
about
this.
us, other people that can mask their signals. They may be so far advanced they're looking at us like we're ants. They just don't care.
Sure. But look at it this way. When we first started making our TV signals, our radio signals, our Morse code signals in the early days of radio, when Marconi was out there banging rocks together, hoping for Prometheus to visit, you can't mask those. Those first attempts will always be floating through the galaxy. And so that being said, it's lonely out there, man. We should have in the past 50 years, and the longer we go, the more likely it becomes that we should detect something like that. Same question I asked about the Dyson sphere when we were talking about the possible Dyson spheres being built around these distant stars. I'm like, okay, sure. But do you realize the chances it would take for us to be at just the height of technology to be able to observe these changes taking place in a star being done by a civilization that's 70,000 years more advanced than us 70,000 years ago? What's the chances, man?
Yeah.
I'm sure there was an alien species on its way to introduce themselves to us, and then they saw first episode of Jersey Shore and said, "Fuck this," turned it around.
If you were going to look at the early, like if you were taking a look at humanity and let's say you wanted to do completeness sake and you started at the beginning, the very first TV broadcast was actually Adolf Hitler at the Olympic Games. That's the first thing they would see.
Great.
That's true. It is
I
true.
prefer the Futurama version where they just want to see the season finale of female lawyer or whatever. Single female lawyer.
Yeah.
That's way better than showing up. It's like, hey, where's this Hitler guy? We like what he had to say. It's like, nope, you don't.
Well, first of all, due to the relativistic nature of the universe, that was a while ago. He ain't around anymore.
Oh, that's no problem. We can bring him back. No. Let's talk. We need to talk more. All right, this is not completely off the table, but first, I want to show you Space Nazi Zombies. This is a comic book that was written right after.
Boy, we went down a road after that propulsion thing, didn't we?
But that's where this leads. That's the Das Glocke for you, man. I mean, we know for a fact that the bad men from World War II were doing these types of experiments back then. So why would these types of experiments have ended? They didn't. Operation Paperclip transmitted them directly over here, and they picked up right where they left off.
Well, and that's just the stuff based in science. You guys are aware of what the Thule Society was, right? It was it was a branch of the SS that was focused more or less on occultism and achieving power through occult means. They would go around, they would collect artifacts of historical or religious or mystical significance. Like it's said that they had, at the very least, recovered a replica of the spear of Longinus, which is said to be the spear that pierced the side of Christ. They were looking for the Holy Grail in the fucking 40s. You know, like they were after all kinds of stuff, but they were also delving into a lot of old pagan lore. There's a reason that a lot of the SS symbology seems to it seems to mirror a lot of like Norse pagan symbolism as well, is because they were in fact practicing some of that stuff. You know, and the Thule Society was sort of not quite secret, but they were sort of like off over in the corner, and the rest of the SS was like, yeah, those guys are fucking weird. But you know, for some reason, the big cheese wants them around.
Sure, the rest of the SS was like, those guys are weird, but anytime they come across something that didn't fall into the norms, they were like, hey, go call your weird cousin over here. We've got something that don't fit.
Right.
And those guys would show up and it would disappear, and very much like the Smithsonian, just vanish away.
Just gone. But they were a very real branch of the SS of the Nazi regime. Yeah. But they had a very specialized mission. Like, you know, they would come in after, say, Rommel took over a section of North Africa. They would come in and comb over all of the stuff that was sacred to to the local peoples there, and see if there was anything that they could use that could possibly give them some kind of like mystical or occult or even just psychological edge over the enemies of the Reich.
A lot of that was, and this is going to sound a little harsh here, but that was the misunderstanding of basic psychology. They were trying to use the spiritual, mystical, and occult nature of various like tribal societies to their benefit, in hopes of being able to utilize that knowledge or that effect, like trying to commandeer the swastika as their blood cloth, whereas it's actually like a Hindu cultural Hindu symbol of good luck and fortune, and a Celtic symbol of great bounty, right? Which
also
makes sense.
A Hopi symbol of fertility, if I remember correctly.
Right. In all historical phases, this symbol has been a benefit to the society that utilized it, but now it's seen as some dark mystical thing that was controlled by the Aryan Brotherhood or some crap, and that's just not the freaking case, man.
Well, they chose that specifically because of the meanings that it had for those other cultures, because it meant virility, strength, and immortality. That's why they used that symbol. It was to symbolize what they hoped the Reich would be.
Which is kind of ironic when you think about the purity they were trying to go for, and they pulled a symbol from a bunch of groups they probably would like to see the end of.
Yeah. I mean, they weren't above using people's shit.
Yeah.
So much more ironic than you know. Not only did they choose symbols from groups they wanted to get rid of, they also utilized a handful of genetic markers, appearances, genetic markers that are not only double but sometimes triple recessives. Blonde hair, blue eyes does not generally come in conjunction with a viable fetus. These are recessive traits. Red hair, you don't want to breed for red hair, because
as a blonde hair, well, used to be blonde hair, blue-eyed guy, I kind of feel attacked at the moment.
I was born just almost white-headed. My hair was platinum as a child, and the older I got, the darker it got. Until recently, when suddenly my little milk vampire mustache has turned into a milk dribble.
Mine is scattered in here. There's a lot more than shows up on camera.
So you're salt and ginger, not salt and pepper.
I guess so. I have like blonde, brown, red, black, and white in this beard. I have no idea.
It's patriotic.
So my man say he tore the shell.
So Andy Pickle brings up something here. Dude, I'm not gonna play the game. I can't do it. I've seen Iron Sky. I love that movie, and I will agree with you that everybody should see that fucking movie, but I'm not going to call it a documentary because it is not a fucking documentary.
That's like saying "Let's They Live" is a documentary.
Right.
I started to watch it and I was having this like I was like laughing and cringing so hard at the same time. I had to turn it off because I didn't know how to feel about it. It was bad but
it's
hilarious at the
so
same
good.
time.
Dude, there's a sequel to it where they go to the center of the earth and all of the important people are actually reptiles wearing people's skin and shit.
I thought I was the only person that watched that one.
All right, I got to put that back on my movie watching list.
Yeah. Oh, there's this great scene. So they are astronauts, for those of you who aren't aware, and I'm not going to spoil the whole thing for you, but essentially, yeah, there's Nazis that have been hiding on the dark side of the moon since the end of the war, and they're completely unaware of what's gone on Earth since then because they've been building up their war machine on the moon. And so some astronauts from America get shot up to the moon, and they end up accidentally hitting to go to explore the dark side, and they find this giant swastika-shaped facility on the other side of it, full of Nazis who've been living up there the whole time. And one of the astronauts is a black man, and they all of the Nazis who are alive on the moon were born there. None of them have ever seen a black man, so they think something's wrong with him. So they try to fix his skin by dyeing him white.
They try to wash him first. At first, they spend a lot of time like looking at his hands and pointing at him and saying, "Look, he come off." It's so horrible. It's so funny. It's so great.
Man.
It's on par with like Deary Off the Wall in its slapstickishness. They really like that. The turtle in the bucket.
Oh, man. It's like an Alex Jones fever dream comedy. It's awesome.
I would hope for such quality in my Meth Gator movie that I'm trying to get done.
Right?
Meth Gator, a love story.
Yeah. We got to a discussion on Devil's Show last night about my taste in movies. This is right in line with that.
Yeah, no, me and you, we could sit down and compare notes, because if you've ever watched Black Devil Doll from Hell or Slaughterhouse, you're my kind of people. In Slaughterhouse, a dude peeps out a butcher's knife. It's horrible.
I'm gonna put this out there once again on the internet. Everybody needs to see Where's Skeeto Nazi Hunter. Just putting that out there. Go watch it. Watch it with the closed captions on, because it is fucking completely worth it.
I've been telling.
Did I just hear you correctly?
Yes.
Yes.
Where's Skeeto? Yes. Where's Skeeto?
I've been telling Sam for months now that he needs to start up a show where he watches these obscure, really weird movies and puts it out as videos. But
you can't do it. Riff tracks. If you try to do that, you will get a copyright strike. You'll be off YouTube. You can't do it.
Not if you cut them up enough. Not if you come up enough.
All right. So I've got a format. There's 2 years
there's
ago.
There's a way around it, but it involves utilizing another platform. I know a couple of people who do it.
Yes, no, you do the live stream without any visuals or any sound from the movie, and all they can hear is us talking. If you're willing to do it as a recording backstage, we can utilize our StreamYards in conjunction to create do the same live stream on the same movie without being live, while showing scenes, and then just use a green background for the media share. And you can go back and put whatever clips you drop lines about or talk about, or you want to edit yours together your way. We can edit ours together our way. And it's just, anyway, there's a way to do it. It's just, you have to use still frames and stuff, and you can't use music from the.
Well, there's also the possibility where I could just, like watch the movie and then do like a scripted video review.
Yeah.
You gonna write a script, boss?
I don't know. I mean, I could find out.
Somebody write me a script.
Let's just go ahead and it'd be bullet points, and then you just kind of like riff off of that. Probably, right?
Well, essentially, like I would describe the movie, detail who was in it, what who wrote it, that kind of thing. Talk about like highlights and lowlights, and what I thought was good. I mean, like you've seen your standard video essay on movie reviews, right? I would just be choosing movies that maybe only I had seen.
Have you ever seen What's Anti-Logic? Are you familiar with this channel?
I don't think so.
I may have brought it up before, but if I haven't, I think you would love this dude. Let me get the link. Wrong.
Yeah. It's just an idea at this point. But...
Just the kind of like recap of movies and things like that. Or you go through and do screenshots, and then you can just use the stills as you're kind of going through it if you want to be more detailed. I don't really watch a lot of movies, but I'm on 3 streams every week that review movies. So I know how every other person kind of does it a little bit differently.
All right. So this guy, he does something a little different from your usual movie review. If you want to share the screen, I'm not going to play any of his videos tonight, but if you'd like to go look at them, that'd be awesome. This guy's name is what is Anti-Logic, but you can find him. Why is it not large? There we go. All right. Zombie multiverse.
It's not large.
The Last of Us is 50% filler, so he fixes it. He cuts out all the scenes. But you get down here and you get into some interesting things. The concepts of headcanons, right? Where he takes groups of films and puts them together in a chronological system that works if they're in the same universe, right? So like hypothetically, 7 could very easily have been a Gotham film if there had been a Batman, right?
So it's like the Pixar theory, but darker.
Way dark. Well, that is way dark.
That also tracks because Matt Reeves, I believe, directed both 7 and the more recent The Batman.
Right. And on top of that, you have the different visual cues where every time you're talking to what's this Brad Pitt's character, it's raining, but anytime you've just got Morgan Freeman's character, it's just dingy. It's not actually raining, it's just gray. And this is to impress upon you the dark and despair of the city. Anyway, he goes into that type of stuff. He goes into the interaction, like the one that's highlighted now, Fight Club. He's got a totally unique kind of take on all of these, and it utilizes things from other movies that the directors, the writers, the screenwriters, the adaptators, these people have done.
I'm scrolling through his videos here, man. He's got the Predator and the Blair Witch in the same universe. I'm gonna actually have to watch that video.
Dude, I'm telling you, homie's braid worked different. Because look, like, okay, I always said that one of the biggest misses that we ever had was Jim Carrey as the Joker and Kevin Spacey as the Riddler. And in 7, Kevin Spacey does a damn good job at playing a Riddler type of character.
Sure. Yeah.
What if Saw and 7 are in the same universe?
Oh no, that would make perfect sense to me.
Way too much sense, right? Add in Hostel on that same universal plane, and you've suddenly got the dark mirror version of reality. You know what I'm saying?
I don't know that I would add Hostel into anything. Fucking Eli Roth is a travesty upon horror movies. Fuck that guy in all of his fucking movies. But you know, that said,
we might even be able to slide some Taken into that same universe without too much wiggle room.
Yeah, maybe like
you know what I'm saying?
His kid was going to end up in an organ farm somewhere.
Right? Everything's evil and dark and organ thing. Yeah.
Oh man.
It sounds like the same universe as Charlie and the Candy Mountain. We're going to Candy Mountain, Charlie. Damn it, they took my freaking kidneys. The magical Leopleurodon. Sorry, I'm having member berries.
Charlie.
Oh my God, you know what I'm talking about.
I know exactly. I
years.
know the magical Leopleurodon. It's a magical Leopleurodon, Charlie.
Shine the non-believer.
Yes, of course I know
I haven't
that.
watched that shit in years.
Hey, dude, I did a couple of shows. I should do it again. Back a couple of years ago, where I went and dug up some truly ancient YouTube lore, things like Boxy. I'm not trolling, you know.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
And drinking out of cups.
Not
You ever
true.
seen drinking out of cups? Drinking out of cups, being a bitch, sidewalk leading me to the building. Fucking balloon for hands. You got balloons for hands. What a motherfucker got balloons for hands? Not me.
We're
No
just
way.
recapping the early days of the internet here.
Yeah, no, we're talking deep lore here, baby.
See, he tried to lie to us earlier. So he was watching speeches at MIT. Nah, he was going down the same rabbit holes we were.
There's more than one computer in a library, sir.
You got MIT on this and a magical Leoplerodon over here.
Yeah. Oh, Jones barbecue and
There's
foot
earbuds,
massage,
one
baby.
on each side.
Dude, hey, look, I am listening to an audiobook right now. Do not jerk my
Thanks,
chamber.
bro.
I love it.
ADD.
I think there's some weird shit out there on the internet. Like you guys ever run across a channel called Lasagna Cat?
You've shown it to me, but
Say it again.
I don't think so.
There's a channel called Lasagna Cat. Now,
Oh,
what's
yeah, no.
notable-
Okay,
yeah, he's like, oh yeah, I know.
yeah. You go ahead with that, sir.
Yeah, so years back in like 2009 or whatever, like the channel suddenly appeared and uploaded like 27 fucking videos, right? And then didn't do anything for like 9 years, and then uploaded a bunch more videos, each of which was more fucking disturbing than the last, including this one that was like 5 hours of people calling in and talking about the first time they had sex to a guy who was extraordinarily lonely, and it just went on and on and on, and then it turns into this whole like German student film existential nightmare. It's where John Arbuckle from Garfield kind of gives birth to himself through a representation of Garfield. It's
Lasagna
weird,
Cat's
weird
first
shit.
upload was 16 years ago, bro.
Yeah,
Garfield's
It's weird shit.
latent bigotry is exposed.
yeah. So
John realized he's using Garfield's
Lord.
cat brush to brush his own hair. I have to go down this rabbit hole.
The reason I bring that up is because there is another video by another guy who it's about a 2.5 hour video essay. It's called "What Did the Internet Do to Garfield?" It's by
Yes.
here, let me yeah, and it's excellent, and it goes through the lasagna cat thing. It also goes through the "Where's my lasagna" meme
Oh, that's super
thing
iPad
that
trolls,
happened.
okay.
It's wild. If you have not seen it, I would absolutely recommend it, especially if you got a thing for Lovecraftian anything, because
Yeah,
just gonna
I was
go
gonna
to
say
that.
Garfield into a
Like this.
nightmare.
Garfield as a Lovecraftian existential horror. Absolutely. What's up,
Yeah.
Clubhouse? Good to see you, bud.
I'm gonna try and bring it up
it's-
here. We're not gonna play it because it's huge, and
is
also
enormous.
because I think that it's a very well done video, and everybody should go watch it. But be prepared to have bad things happen in the back of your mind where it gets itchy.
Yeah, I've
It's the best
been
part of your
subscribed to
childhood.
Super
for
iPad
permanent.
Wolf for a year or two now. I don't know why I missed this one. Maybe it just seemed a little bit too weird and I didn't click it.
Yeah, Eye Patch Wolf. That's the guy. Yeah, but this is
He makes
this
really
is
good
an
stuff.
incredible video that
Ugh.
you'll never read a Garfield comic strip the same fucking way again. I guarantee.
Yeah,
that damn to you.
no, existential horror. When you realize that he has the ability to alter reality and that somebody's locked in John's basement that might have been either the previous John or John's roommate, we're not sure.
Or that Garfield isn't in fact real and is a figment of John's
John's imagination.
depression.
Yes, he is John's depression made manifest, and Odie is John's the other side
His
of
guilt.
the
Yeah.
guilt and happiness and
All right.
all of that stuff.
Well, I know what I'm watching later tonight.
Yeah.
Oh, you
it's
might want to
very
do it
cool.
in the morning, bro. It's going to mess with your head a little. You'll be laying in bed tonight, not able to sleep, and it's going to be our fault.
You're here doing this, also listen to an audiobook. I play games and then play YouTube on this side and comprehend both at the same time. So I'll be doing that. I'll distract myself with some Fallout and then I can sleep soundly.
I used to work in a movie rental place. And when we got in movies that of certain stripes, certain types of movies, we had to watch them to make sure no one had put any unsavory scenes into it. So things like The Little Mermaid.
Nobody did Tyler Durden stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And so between the ages of 9 and 19 or so, but until that place closed, I had 6 or 10 TVs set up behind the counter and all the little shelves under the bottom so that the customers couldn't see it, and might have all of them playing videos to verify that there hasn't been anything edited in. I couldn't hear but 2 of them at a time, but that gave me the ability to put in a movie I wanted to watch while doing work without interfering with what else was going on up there. So I was uniquely trained to YouTube.
No kidding.
Not me, man. I was never good at tech shit. I had to learn all this shit on the fly in the last 2 years. I'm still learning. Yeah.
Me too, bro. Listen,
we're all still learning. At the moment that you think you know everything, you have failed at getting smarter.
Sure. What I guess what I'm getting at is that around the time that YouTube became big, I was not really doing anything with computers, didn't really understand them or anything like that. And then it was years and years and years later. I know the others have probably heard this before, Beard, but I'm not sure if I've told you. So I got started doing this as an angry voice in a young lady's chat. Right. I was just posting shit in her chat, and all that. Not angry with her, but just angry in general. Her topics were generally political. It's just right-leaning American Muslim conservative.
Yeah.
And I was agreeing with her and all that stuff. And then one day I jumped into one of her chats and discovered all of a sudden I had a wrench. Didn't know how that happened. I didn't even know that she'd noticed me. We had a couple of email exchanges, and that was about it. And then it goes on a little further, and the next thing I know, not only do I have a wrench, but I'm up on her panel, because she'll open up the panel to her chat occasionally for people to come on and say what they need to say and all that shit. So I did that a few times, and it was all right, this is kind of cool and all that stuff. And then the next thing I know, myself, Lawrence Knight, I believe you've met, just kind of started being friends outside of the YouTubeverse, as Awkward Ashley calls it. And all of a sudden I got backstage powers over her StreamYards. And I still don't know how any of this shit happened. It just kind of kept happening to me. And I'm like, so I come on to one of her shows.
My journey.
Yeah, I come on to one of her shows, and then, in the middle of the show, she's like, yeah, I got to go do something else now. So you got this, right? And it fucking leaves while I've got, like, at the time, she had a channel with 38,000 followers, by the way. And I'm just like, well, I guess we're here now.
Yeah, I wasn't thrown into that big of a pool, but that's basically exactly how I got into this.
Right. And but I did it enough times, so I was like, I kind of like doing this. I'm going to try and do something myself, and she was a big part of that inspiration, along with some of the other fellows that I watched at the time, like Nerdrotic, Critical Drinker, that kind of thing. So yeah, I grabbed a couple of my buddies and started doing this show. This was the first show that I ever did. We're 101 episodes now. We started doing this over 2 years ago. And here we are. And if you go back and you listen to that first episode, it's kind of a fucking mess.
It should be.
On my usual, it's kind of like my home channel on Mondays after the weekend.
Hey, Alf.
I have had to host solo without my other 2 co-hosts twice. And I both consider them disasters and only salvageable because of my panel of guests that I brought on were amazing. It
really helps when you've got great guests.
If you put me in, I'm good at like responding to things. You've put me in charge of the stream. My brain shuts off just to try to disassociate out of panic. And then my mouth doesn't stop moving. And
I'm the exact opposite, bro. I'm the exact opposite. I started my channel to read Westerns because of my voice. And I got a broken mic, and it wouldn't work in OBS properly, but did work in StreamYards. But at the time, StreamYards didn't offer a whole lot of features. And so one of the things I could do was invite people in and talk to them. And I discovered a talent I never knew I had. So completely buried under my family's stoicism that I had simply learned to chew down every comment, every response, everything I had ever done. It's not that I'm not funny. You just don't like that joke. It took me a long time to learn that. And when I realized it, part of what caused it is I went on somebody else's panel and I spent 2 hours questioning a guy about his channel. And then the next time I was on a panel, I was invited specifically to come question a guy about his channel. So in an organic sort of falling backwards into the pond kind of way, I created something called Sasquatch Shields, where that's all we do is discuss your channel, your content, what you're doing, why you're doing it, how you do it, in what way you can help other people do something similar, or what kind of help you might need to do something you want to do, all of this. And then I provide a location for all previous guests to come and have like an equal seat at the round table, so to speak.
Hey, Devil,
Cool.
Yeah, I should do shit
Shadow's
as
talking
tank.
shit in the chat.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm gonna slap that little shit.
Yeah. Fun fact, Shadu, that actually is Devil's face in the PFP. It's just been run through AI.
Yep. Yep. That's me. I actually showed my face real early. People just didn't know it. One of the first PFPs I used was the kid, doing the fist going yes, like that. And I ran it through a program that actually morphed my face into that kid's face. And I put it out there and no one knew. They just were all like, why does the kid have a mustache? It was because it was me.
I tell people when people are ask me what they can do to improve their channel, I tell them to start doing shorts. Do shorts, but listen, you want to be funny, but not clever. Clever offends people who don't get it. Be funny, not clever. If you try to be clever, 90% of the people won't care. And the few people that do get it will be offended. I'll just guarantee it. Meanwhile, you'll have one guy that goes, ha, 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 I see what you did there. That's it. That's all you get for clever.
It's usually me.
Good news for me, I'm not clever. Unfortunately, I'm also not funny. So
I see. I didn't know I was funny. I had no idea I was funny. I was told my whole life that I was mean, that I'm an asshole, that I don't respect people's feelings, that I have no public coot. When everyone else is saying things that such utter trash, it's false. It's fictional. You are lying to each other out loud in a common conversation. Why? I don't understand. I do not get why you would sit and talk to someone and tell them a dozen lies in a white lie conversation and walk away. And I'm like, none of that crap's true. You're not doing well. You owe on your car. You've got these problems, those problems, these other problems. Why would you lie to these people? Oh, they don't want to know about that. But they asked. And it's that irony of me not understanding why people lie the way they do. And when I point it out, people laugh. And I'm like, I didn't tell a joke. You told a lie. I went, ha ha, and everybody else laughed with me, and that's different. I don't see it as funny. It's just factual, and it's weird. Like, for instance, what you laugh at, you don't get to decide.
it's true.
You do not decide what is funny. You might think you do, and you may be a very stoic individual. But the right joke under the right circumstances will leave you giggling like a little schoolgirl in a church and a funeral. And there's nothing you can do about that. The trick is to be able to read the room well enough to get to that point without having to be at the funeral. Humor's funny. Read Stranger in a Strange Man.
Humor really lands truthfully when people devolve into that laugh that is embarrassing, because we all have an embarrassing laugh. We have the laugh that we would like to be the good laugh that everybody hears, but then we have the giggles and the snorts and the high-pitched laughs and things like that.
Oh, we lost Sam
Just
again.
lost Sam. Let's go back to chat because that's all we're good for.
But yeah, that's the thing. Like I'll get I don't have
I could
like you, a Western reading voice. When I laugh, if it's a good laugh, it's it'll be like a genuine like ha followed by higher pitched giggles, and it's not super impressive when I'm out in public trying to look, appealing to all the ladies around me. But you know what? It's my laugh. It happens. It was funny.
My wife says that she hasn't heard an honest laugh out of me for years because I do voice work ever since I started doing voice work, and I do stupid things like Autobots assemble or I am Optimus Prime, but the laughs are more like they just come out. They're Goofy or Daffy or Donald or whatever. And she says she wants to get a what?
Said yuck.
Oh yuck.
Oh.
Right. So she wants to get a recorder so that she can catch me doing the stupid voices while I'm watching a movie, because apparently I don't even realize I'm doing that. So like somebody in the movie will say a line and I will respond as a cartoon character of some kind. And she's like, you ruined everything I watch. And I'm like, I don't understand why. She's like, because you respond to the characters with other characters.
I love that. That's awesome.
She's like, we'd have billions of views right now. What's up, Tiffany? Welcome in, girl.
Now I just kind of want to like get a whole recording of you like sitting down, like watching a Goofy movie and just like responding as Max and Goofy.
Well, one of the best that I had happen, I got a buddy of mine who does the Boo Boo Bear voice almost flawlessly, and I do Yogi Bear pretty good. And we had an argument outside the house one night, and we could hear people in the neighborhood giggling because it was obvious. Boo Boo. There was another case where I was on a panel with a guy who does Hank Hill flawlessly, and I do Alex Jones really, really, really well. And he was about propane, and Alex Jones and Hank Hill went off for about 30 minutes on how the propane.
That was last week. I was on that panel.
Maybe they happened again. That's what I'm saying. We had a really good one. That's what dude, me and him were both drunk as hell, son. I was like 9-10 shots in when he showed up, and he was already half a bottle of Cuervo down, and we just went at it, son.
What are the chances that you know the guy on YouTube under the moniker Stark of Iron?
Not off the top of my head.
He kind of runs in a different. I kind of like intersect with a lot of different circles of YouTube. That he kind of runs in the community of Doomcock. But he does a lot of voices, and he basically does his live streams like a old school like radio variety show. There's a whole bunch of voices and characters and things like that, and just slips in and out of them occasionally. I would think it'd be pretty fun to get you two on a stream together to just riff and just go nuts.
Well, that's the thing. It's like a bird call. It's not something I can really control under most cases. I have to hear it. Like something triggers it. It's when I'm watching a movie. I don't know what characters I'm choosing.
That would be perfect. Because Tony, because I thought of him because you mentioned Hank Hill. He'll just occasionally switch into Hank Hill or Rick and Morty or things like that. Just there's a rule on his stream. If you're on his stream and you belch, you immediately have to do a Rick and Morty impression. Oh, and so he'll just be going along, just go, oh, come on, Morty. He says, like, oh, what are you doing? We got to get this shit, Morty. Just kind of like just immediately roll into it. And I would just love to like get a couple other people who do some good voices on there.
I don't know, Rick.
Scully's House Taylors. I can't remember what he changed his name to. Hold on, he was in chat a minute ago. Yeah. Scully
reminded me of something though.
We were doing live readings of various like public domain plays and stuff, and one of my favorites that we did, he got the Tarantino version of Alice in Wonderland or something. What was it, man? What was the Tarantino version of? Oh yeah, Shawshank Redemption. Somebody put in Chat GPT, what would Shawshank Redemption look like if it was written by Tarantino? And so we went and did it, and it was killer, man. It's great. I got to do who's the hardest screw to ever walk a turn at Shawshank? That guy. I did his voice, and boy, were the F-bombs dropped hard with a nasty southern drawl.
A lot of hard
Lots of language, a lot of bloodshed, and a bunch of feet.
Yeah, feet, definitely. I You just reminded me of something though when you said you can't just like turn it on; it just sort of happens. A while back, I was so a while back I was on a show with Larry. We were doing Abyssal Musings, and we had a guy named Joker Voice on. I'm sure some of you guys know who he is. He does like
Big fan
reviews.
of
He
Joker.
does numbers and stuff for he's a good dude. And he's an advocate for certain charities that help promote and help people work through stuttering, because he himself has a stutter. So
Hashtag
he
keep
said
talking.
something on one of those panels, and my friend Amira was in the chat, and she watched this part of the show, and he said something on there, and it just kind of, like, stutter's a stutter. You can't really control that either. Like, it comes out how it comes out. And so he said something along the lines of bitch. Right. And she thought he was doing that shit on purpose. So the next week he was on again, and she came on the panel. She's like, "Hey, do that thing again." He's like, "Do what thing?" Because he didn't, it's just, he doesn't think like that. He's just like, "I was just talking or whatever." She's like, "Do that thing again," where he's like, but he's like, "It's a stutter. I can't just turn it on."
Yeah, suddenly he can't do it. When I was a kid, I had a stutter. I had a really nasty D stutter. D's and STs really, really burnt me down. And it took me a while to realize that the reason I was stuttering was because I was trying to speak faster than my mouth. My brain was working faster than my mouth. And so what I would do whenever I would realize there was a time period where I would and I would stop and close my eyes, and I would sing a stupid song inside my head and then say it flawlessly. And I still do this to this day. And you can see it happen when I'm live, and I'll start talking, and you'll see me go stut, and I'll just blink. It happens that fast now, but it was a learned skill.
Yeah, I was never diagnosed with a stutter, but I kind of had the same thing where my brain would start trying to think 2 to 3 sentences ahead of what I was saying. Still happens occasionally. I try to focus in whenever I'm on stream, as much as a joke about turning my brain off. But yeah, I totally get that. And the best thing about JV Joker Voice is that he's heard everything throughout his life, so he's a good sport, especially if it's people who are not malicious about it, and even people who are, he just doesn't care. So
yeah, he wasn't offended that she asked that. He was just kind of shocked.
Especially because if you spend more than 5 minutes on a stream with him, you're going to hear it more than once.
Right. So yeah, no, I've known JV for a couple of years. He's a good dude. We don't run like 100% in the same circles because I'm less of a numbers guy, and I don't do as much with the pop culture anyway. But I got to be honest, like the stuff that he does and Culture Casino does, and like at Valiant Renegade does, like I can't do numbers. Numbers bore the shit out of me, but he's good at it.
Yeah.
So
he's fantastic at it. Right now I'm on a Thursday stream with him, Roman of the Empire. We're covering the Acolyte. Ugh, who cares?
Yeah.
I care. I want to talk about the Acolyte. I desperately want to talk about the Acolyte. Listen, I have one
Sorry,
part
I shouldn't have brought it up. Get the agenda.
Nope.
What are you doing?
Sam, I'm going off. Listen.
That's enough of that.
I shouldn't
I'm putting this out there. I do not care about the Acolyte. As far as I'm concerned, that shit did not happen.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Look, I only watch.
I already knew.
My justification is that if I want to have an opinion and hopefully have people take it seriously, then I need to watch the things I have an opinion on. People who have an opinion and they try to act like they're activists and only watch that through somebody else, such like myself and the rest of the panel talking about that, in my opinion, that invalidates your opinion. You didn't actually sit down and digest everything and make your own opinion. You just digested our opinions. So that's one of the only reasons that I'm going through it. As much as I love Star Wars. The old Star
Wars.
The
wrinkles in my brain where they are, sir.
Yeah, I got a counterpoint for you there. I hear what you're saying. I do. But that's kind of like saying that somebody doesn't get to have an opinion because they chose not to drink Jim Jones Kool-Aid.
Well, it doesn't apply to everything, but I also I also had that opinion of my buddy back in the day. Good guy, hated. See, I've kind of become him too, so it's this kind of contradictory. But he was super libertarian, basically wanted to tear the entire government down, but in protest, never participated in any vote, but then would spend the next 4 years constantly talking about the person that he didn't vote for and the person that he also didn't vote for. And I just wanted to pull him aside and say, Ben, look, I understand why you didn't vote for him, but you're really obsessed with both of these guys that you didn't vote for. But I don't know. It's kind of one of the contradicting things, because I'm also kind of in that mindset as I've gotten older, where I'm just like, I don't like anything here. But at the very least, in my opinion, if I watch a terrible TV show or a good TV show or vote one way or the other, in my mind, that gives a little bit more credibility. So if somebody shows up and says that I didn't participate in this thing, but here's my opinion, I may listen to it, but I don't hold it to the same value that somebody who did participate in whatever they needed to do to actually kind of get to that point.
Sure. I think that somebody who's actually been through a thing probably has more credibility in terms of experience and knowing what they're talking about specifically. Yeah. Sure. In the broader sense of like the acolyte is, in the broader sense that the acolyte is commie fucking dystopian trash. I think that pretty much everybody's got a right to talk about it, but you would have much more credibility in terms of like the specifics of why, because you'd actually seen the thing. Right. So I totally get that.
It's kind of like with Kenobi. I didn't watch Kenobi because Obi-Wan Kenobi is one of my favorite characters, and I knew they were going to destroy him. And so I have my opinions, but I always couch those opinions when I'm talking to people about them, saying, but I didn't watch the show. I've only heard X, Y, and Z.
Sure. No, I got you. I do kind of the similar thing. Like, for those of you out there who aren't familiar with me, I am a pagan. I'm not Christian. I'm not Muslim. I'm not Jewish. I don't subscribe to any of the Abrahamic stuff. And I find myself constantly defending particular Abrahamic sects from other people, particularly atheists, because they don't have all their fucking facts straight. Mormons in particular, right? I happen to know a thing or two about that religion, having grown up in and around it, right? And so when I see people going off about like, they have all these wives and shit, it's like, no, they don't actually, but it's more complicated than that. It's not actually a thing now, because they're also commanded to live by the laws of the land. And since polygamy is illegal in the United States, they don't do that except for the offshoot cults in the South, who also murder people and are not associated with the main church. So I get it. Like, if you're going to attack something, I do think that we should be more informed. We should know what we're talking about. If you're going to go after something like that, I'm not saying there isn't things to go after the Mormons about. I just think people need to get their fucking facts straight first.
Everybody can have your own personal opinion, but if you want to make your personal opinion an argument against somebody else, then I think you need to actually wade into the waters, get dirty, and get into the weeds of everything.
Yeah, but I constantly find myself in a position where I'm like, well, actually, no, your whole argument is bullshit, and you clearly didn't actually read the thing that you're criticizing.
Yeah,
because it says this and not this, and then they're like, well, you're just defending them because you're one of. I was like, I'm actually not.
And that's something that I see. I didn't know about that about you until recently. Our little back and forth on X recently, and it's like, all right, cool. It's one of the great things that I love about people who can like legitimately have conversations, because most people would think like that you shit. And me, I'll fess up to it. I was raised Southern Baptist. I'm a Christian still, but most people would think that we wouldn't be able to have a conversation, let alone be on the same side of any kind of meaningful argument.
You want to hear something fucking wild? So I have a huge problem with Catholicism. I have always had a huge problem with Catholicism. For a lot of different fucking reasons, but who showed me that people who don't agree on things can actually talk was a fucking Catholic priest. Back when I was like 17 years old or something like that, I was bumming around on the streets and shit like that. And we broke into a church one night just because, we're looking for someplace warm to sleep and shit. Dude came out of the rectory and he found us there, and he's like, well, before you go to sleep, you guys want to go down to like Village Inn and have some pie and chat and all that stuff. And he took us down there, and we just had a nice discussion over pie about anything and everything. He wasn't even trying particularly to convert us. He just was trying to make sure that we got something to eat before we went to sleep. He wasn't pissed at all about the church thing. And I got to know him a little bit, after that, I went back to talk to him a few more times, just as one human being to another, faith notwithstanding. And yeah, it was a fucking Catholic priest that showed me that people who disagree on very basic things that are fundamental to who they are can still have a conversation, can still be friends, can still break bread together. Yeah. And I have to give him credit for that every day. Shout out to you, Father Og, if you're out there.
Nice.
One of the issues I have with talking any type of agenda with people at all is, and I'm going to use this particular group as an example, but it can be applied over the spectrum everywhere. Specifically, anti-gun people, anti-Second Amendment people. If you speak to any of these people, you will discover that not only do they not approve of guns, they are completely uneducated on the subject. They use words like assault. They use words like military grade, as if these things have meaning in a court of law, when in reality, there is no such thing as any type of assault weapon. It's not a thing. So that definition doesn't fly. And so when you encounter these people, you can't have a conversation, especially a useful conversation with them, because they don't know enough about the topic to admit that they're wrong. They don't know.
The problem is they think they do. And when it comes down to having a conversation with somebody who has a very differing opinion than you do, you both have to approach it from a point of, I don't know as much as I think I do. And if you can do that, then you can open yourself up to an actual conversation. Your mind might not be changed after that conversation, but you cannot do that while thinking that you're better than somebody else, because then you're either going to be offended or you're going to try to talk somebody down. I mean, one of my best friends back in the day, Preston, worked at Best Buy together. We were polar opposites politically and religiously. He was, and I was still am Christian, fairly conservative these days, much more conservative those days. And he was a pretty liberal atheist. And my best conversations about politics and religion to this day, and it's been like 20 years, were with Preston, discussing completely different opposite opinions, while also trying not to work, because goddamn, it's Best Buy. Who wants to work there? But yeah, that was kind of like the priest you were talking about. Is like, I didn't realize that dude was so opposite of my opinions, because we just were friends and had conversations and talked about religion, value of it, history of it, political things, that back and forth. And neither one of us got mad or wanted to break the nose of the other. And as soon as I stopped talking, Sam did just.
Growth. It was your fault. We had a good show.
Sam was getting disconnected again.
I'm back. It's fine. I missed whatever you guys are talking about just now, but
Well, see, and then I directly addressed you too. Damn, you're gonna have to go back and watch your own replay if you want to get it.
I actually do that, because I look for I go through to cut shorts out and stuff. But
no, to be brief, I was talking about an old friend that, like, religiously and politically completely opposite of me, and we had great conversations regarding politics and religion and things like that. So kind of like the priest you were talking about. That's if you can just like approach a conversation like that, you don't know better than anybody else, with humility, then you can actually discuss and debate and have a conversation without being offended.
Yeah, but that is the purpose of this show, is to bring people together to have conversations. Like, not everybody on this panel or who've ever been on this panel agrees about everything. We don't, it's one of the reasons we come here to talk. For instance, I understand that the Islamist invasion of Europe is a bad thing objectively, but I also understand a little bit more about Islam than most people, in my demographic, because I actually spend some time talking to some Muslims, so like it's a good thing. It's communication, I think, is the key to survival.
Oh yeah, experience. Travel cures racism. the more you travel and the more you meet different people, and you find out that the quality of a man's character is not dictated by the color of his skin, but by the quality of his raising and his morals, you realize that you might have more in common. If you were to go to like San Antonio and meet 20 people in the street, you might have more in common with another American standing there than anyone else on that particular street, just because you two are Americans. Y'all have the same basest values, like the truth, justice, liberty, that whole 9 yards, you know, Superman, that thing. But the issue I have with all of this is the dichotomy that exists between the concept of the flyover states versus the East and West Coast, right? 90% of the physical land of this country is registered Republican. The people who live there vote Republican. The people who grow your crops, who grow your food, deliver it, who drive it, who clean it, who process it, the whole nine. These are the people that are voting Republican. Meanwhile, the inner cities and the large cities are the ones that are voting Democrat largely. And their population centers are so vast that they are outvoting the flyover states based on population pressures alone. So anytime you have an influx of unknown voters and you place them in an inner city environment, they will become Democrat voters due to lack of any other influence. You don't find a whole lot of Republicans sitting in downtown New York talking about, you know what I'm saying? It's just, that's not a thing. Donald Trump, he is not running on Republican values. He is running on mid-90s, actually mid-80s liberal values.
Yes.
He was a Democrat in New York most of his life. And the only reason this is working is because the window has shifted so far left that he looks right-wing. Personally, I'm slightly right-wing of Attila the Hun. I think you should all do what I say. But if we're not going to do that, we're going to do this voting thing I keep hearing about.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting that you say that he was like, you know, mid-80s, like liberal, because to what you said earlier about travel cures racism, I was about to push back and say being a kid through the 80s cured racism, because that was back in the day when nobody gave a shit about it. And it was like, that was post-racism right there. And we have regressed every year. We've gotten further away from that. But also, it's interesting because when you start really looking at it, the flyover states versus the metropolitan centers, you have producers versus consumers. And that very clearly kind of divides between your typical, not always, but your typical mentalities on Democrat versus Republican and things like that.
Did you change out your tampon, Sam?
Yeah, you get clean again.
I changed out all the tampons. I got more than one cloaca.
Oh my God.
Oh, you're excellent fun.
Well, you just keep your tentacles out of all of them while you're on stream.
No.
Liberty's been dreading this the whole time. He's like, when's it going to happen? When's he going to say something fucked up?
Look, fun fact that nobody cares about. When this gets wet in the shower, it kind of looks like a Cthulhu tentacle thing going on. So I relate a little bit. I feel like anytime I get out of the shower and I look in the mirror, I'm like, oh, okay, this is what
I don't have any hair right here. Right.
Beard of Liberty's slippery when wet.
I am slippery when wet.
I'm telling you,
also,
man,
fun fact that nobody else cares about, because fuck it, who cares? I can tie my beard behind my head. That's a new discovery I've had recently.
Somehow that is even more douchey than the man bun. I'm amazed.
It really is. I'm not going to do it. I'll put like beads in my beard before I do that thing.
Yeah, my kids mess with my beard. They do all kinds of funky stuff with it, but otherwise, I just comb it and leave it.
I mean, I am kind of thinking about buying a pack of really tiny hair bands, because occasionally I'm doing work where I really don't want to get this caught in machinery, even something, I mean, it's not machinery, even something as basic as a hand drill. And I realize that thing is turning in the vents right there. And my beard is doing this. I'm like, nope, that needs to be tied up and out of the way.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Let me tell you, anytime I get around anything that rotates, spins, or has wind associated with it, I turned this into a little ball on the back of my head, and then I put a hat over it.
Yeah, I don't have to worry about that part.
We're not doing that. I'm not having that experience. No, sir. I once had a shirt ripped off of me on a lathe. Like, it caught my skin. Thank God it was like a really old shirt that had seen its better days. But no BS. I'm standing there, and the first clue that I knew anything was wrong, my shirt was gone. And I just stepped back and looked. And I was like, I had to look around and find where it had wrapped up because it was. I was like,
good to see Squatch scene there in the freaking thing, just going.
See, I can also do. I can cover those with this too. So,
right? Can you tickle your nipples?
Oh, I can. It reaches both. I don't need this to tickle. No, I'm hairy enough. Tickling is happening all the time. I'm
actually not. This is funny. Grass don't grow on a playground, boys. Hair don't grow on me, bro. I'm not a hairy guy. I know I look like I would be a really hairy guy, but grass don't grow on a playground. It never gets a chance.
And that's funny to me because except for this, I have hair everywhere.
You ever do any like
one of the
Moria
channels
cosplay?
that I'm on when they hit 500, I apparently have agreed to appear shirtless. So ladies and/or gentlemen, you know,
I'm aroused. He doesn't know who he's messing with, do he?
It's really easy to titillate Sasquatch.
Yeah,
not the first time
that guy's got the lowest standards.
Dude, I have been harassing Legion Talks for the past year because he made a joke about him wanting someone to stalk him, and I said, "Oh, you're the specimen." And that's the end of that story. He's been specimen me ever since.
He didn't even refer to him as Ryan or Legion Talk for almost a whole year. He only referred to him as specimen, and only people who were in on it knew what he was talking about.
I'm gonna have to bring that up randomly next time I'm talking to him.
Oh, there'll be a story. I guarantee either that or he won't talk about it. I try real hard to make it really uncomfortable. Like right on the edge of the paint.
Every time Ryan says something.
It's weird that I like think that people can make him like uncomfortable. I didn't think I could make him uncomfortable whenever I was a Wesley on the Star Trek show. But apparently I said something that like made him weirded out. And then he was a guest on one of my other shows later on. And I mentioned a joke from the previous, like the Star Trek episode. And he just like shut down laughing. He's like, oh my God, he remembers the jokes, and like just like shut down. He couldn't handle it.
Dude, I flat wore him down over what, a year and a half of being in every single chat he showed up in. Showed up the very second I show up, hey specimen.
Every time I still remember the very like, ooh, my crush deepens.
I still remember the first time I broke that man on a panel. Because I have a short cutout that like it's up there for posterity on my channel. But we were talking about the Flash movie, right? That was coming out a couple years ago, and Ezra Miller's quote unquote running came up in conversation, right? Like how he runs like a wounded duck, right? And I may or may not have made a comparison to a female palsy victim, and he just lost it. and then I was like, am I wrong? And he can't breathe. He's laughing so hard. He's holding his nose. He's looking down, and he's just like shaking his head. No, you're not wrong, but fuck you so much, man.
Yeah, I kind of want to message him right now and just say, "Hey, specimen," but I feel I should wait until he's live and in the chat so I can see the reaction.
Yeah.
Hey, I got an idea. If you really want to mess with him, email me after the show and I'll send you a picture to send to him. We can meme it. It'll be great.
First time on camera, maybe second time on camera on stream. He made some joke, and the GIF of my reaction is still out there, and it gets used frequently.
I just have to say this, Squatch, you and Ryan would make the most unappealing gay couple ever. It's like there's
Are you joking, brother? Listen, between me and him, you were talking about 2 6-foot tall white males.
Their beards would get tangled.
We would make so much money. We would never argue. We'd just go home and watch cat videos and drink boxes of wine.
Occasionally bang each other, but you know what? You get lonely every now and then. You just got to do what you got to do.
That's the kind of scene that would clear out like one of the freaking pride parades. Just them two walking hand in hand down the street. Just all the gay guys.
No. We would link pinkies. We would link pinkies. That's how we would walk up with our pinkies linked.
Well, and on that gay ass note, we did have some other topics today, folks, but we are coming up pretty close to 3 hours now, and we haven't needed them. This has been great.
Yeah, we derailed you pretty quick. We went down a really futuristic metaphysical route, and then we just degraded after that. It's been fun, man. But yeah, we degraded.
This is how it is, though. Like the whole point of the topics is just to get the conversation started, and I like to see where it goes. So this episode, this is fucking perfect as far as I'm concerned. This is how it should be. As I say in the disclaimers, we're not experts in anything. We're just people fucking talking, and that's we're totally entitled to that. Y'all in the chat are totally entitled to fucking scream at us about what fucking idiots we are.
I have one expertise. I have one thing I would say I'm expert on.
Is it specimen?
No, it's procrastination. I'll explain later.
Yeah. So, but yeah, no, this was good. This was, I do start collecting topics throughout the beginning of the week and all that, and sometimes we get to them, sometimes we don't. I always prefer the ones that we don't because the conversation flows in a natural way, and I think that it's more entertaining. It's more enjoyable for people on panel and for people in chat. It's a good time, and this has been a fucking fun show. We got to talk about some stuff that wasn't horrendous too, so that's always good. So yeah, this has been great. So we'll probably end it here. By the time we get through outros, we'll be pushing 3 hours. We're at 2:45 right now, so let's go around the horn a little bit. As everybody who watches this show knows, I really like counterclockwise. So Caucasian Sasquatch, where can people find you?
Wittershins! Yes, sir. All right. So I'm Caucasian Sasquatch. I do things on YouTube. Not sure what you'd call them. Produce a show on Sundays called The Blast Radius, which is a satire look at the news, kind of like Dennis Miller meets Saturday Night Live, but not lefty. We have on Tuesday, I do Lost with Ajot, where me and Ajot's Corner sit down and look at usually either interrogation or arrest videos of some type and basically laugh at the internet in general. Once a month, I do something called YouTube Slave Class, where I bring together different creators that have been associated with me for a little while that I trust, and we get them together, old creators with new creators, and discuss how videos are made, how to define what type of video it is. It's basically just YouTube brass tacks is what it comes down to. And I do a show called Sasquatch Shields, where we discuss your channel specifically, why you have it, what you're doing, what you plan to do, whether you're branding, gonna monetize, not. And the only requirement for that is 3 videos and a couple of subscribers. The videos help.
All right. Beard of Liberty. Thank you for being here, man.
I appreciate it. Sorry I was late again. I mismanaged my time and kind of scheduled things together at the same. I do that. I have 3 regulars throughout the week, but usually I just kind of pop up wherever people want me to. In about an hour, I'm going to be over on After the Weekend. ATW movie reviews. It's not a great handle on YouTube. It's hard to find, but if you follow me on X, I can lead you to it. Myself, JT Gunn, Untamed Mando, and Alaska Man Jeff will be ranking 90s animated movies. After the Weekend is kind of our, like I said, kind of previously our, no, that was a different stream. Sorry, things are running together. We kind of focus on 80s and 90s growing up, like the good old days, films, TV shows, and things like that. Then Sunday, I've got a afternoon stream with Stark of Iron and Snail Messiah. We're going to be talking like Fallout memes. We've just really been enjoying the Fallout universe. So we're going to stick in with that. Monday, every Monday in the evening after the weekend is on again with our movie reviews. We haven't settled on a movie this week, but I guarantee it's going to be a good one because we don't pick bad movies. Tuesdays, I'm on with Jacob Ironside for another movie review, and I'm a bad guest because I don't remember what movie it is this week. But join in. He kind of dives into the old stuff. We're talking like black and white, or like Lawrence of Arabia, some John Wayne films, really old stuff. It's really fun. And then Thursdays,
I caught one of his shows.
Yeah,
I caught one of his shows that he did with Magitech Mags. I think last year about Rear Window.
Oh yeah,
Pretty good.
Yeah. The guy has really good taste in movies, and I'm not. It's weird. I'm not a movie viewer, but I'm on 3 channels that review movies, and Jacob has never led me astray. Lastly, however, on Thursdays, Roman of the Empire has led me astray because I'm watching The Acolyte. So if you don't really want to watch it and you just want to hear a bunch of us laugh at it, you can tune in there. That's Thursday evenings, 5 o'clock Pacific, I think.
Nice, good deal. Devil, what's going on? What do you got? How you doing? Hey, baby.
Don't talk like that.
Don't sexualize me in front of our friends.
No, I will be doing some stuff been thrown up in the air with my plans here. I should be on Horny Owl's game stream tomorrow at 5 p.m. I believe we're doing State of Decay. Monday, I should be on Adam's channel for Mellow Mondays. And then there's no regular Wrong Think on Wednesdays this week. We are doing a special on Thursday, The Debate, where we will be playing drinking games and watching it along with Dermy's show and Static 2020 show. So we're kind of combining the 3 into one show. And then back to the Ballbusters and the pub on Friday. That's where I'll be all week.
Nice. All right, that brings it around to me. My name is Samuel the Infamous. You can find me on the channel of the same name on YouTube and on Rumble. It's Hentai Surprise on on Twitter. It was a really poorly thought out name because I get all kinds of likes and shit from hentai accounts that I don't follow because it's in the name.
It's an appropriate name when you think about it, though. It's great.
It is. I'll explain a joke to you some other time. But anyway, you can find us there. By the way, for everybody you see on the panel here and most of our other regular and rotating panelists, you can on my YouTube channel and Rumble under the description find their links below, including after the weekend for Beard of Liberty. If you have another link you want me to put on there, I can add that after.
That's the good one.
So, but yeah, we're out there. We're here. We're queer. It's deal with it. So yeah, I might be later on tonight. We'll I haven't actually checked yet, but I think I might have some moderating and managing to do on Exiled Lioness 2. And otherwise, you'll find me with Devil over on Adam the Renaissance Nerds channel, or as I like to call him, Adam the Red Shirts channel, for Mellow Mondays back here next Friday with my my partner Lawrence Knight and possibly Know Me Without You if she's available. We'll be back for Abyssal Musings. We'll see what happens with that. We may have a guest, we may not. It kind of depends on how things go. As for this show next week, it is still up in the air. I will post in the community tab on YouTube and on Twitter when a decision finally has been made. But there's a good chance there won't be a show this weekend for Screaming Into the Void. It may happen. Either way, once I've got all that shit figured out, I'll let you guys know in those 2 places. So keep an eye out for that. Otherwise, yeah, thanks for coming. This has been fantastic. Thank you to Sasquatch, to Beard, to Devil for being here. Thank you to all of my other rotating guests and panelists for just being generally a part of the show and helping get us as far as we are. This is episode 101. And thank you to chat for watching, commenting, giving us shit, pushing back, laughing at us, occasionally agreeing with us when we say something that's not retarded. We do appreciate it. We appreciate all
agreeing when we
do
say something retarded.
Absolutely. That said, thanks a lot for coming. This has been a fun show. We will see you all next time. And remember, it could always be worse. It could be raining flaming cobras. Have a great night, everybody.
Bye.